Chapter 76, Chapter 074 First Challenge. Chapter 074. After Alex passed through the golden door, he found himself in a very wide room. There were 3 doors on the other side, each of them color-coded. The left door was green, the right one was yellow, and in the center, there was a red-colored door. But he didn't take a step towards them. From what guard had told him, the challenge would begin as soon as he stepped through the door. So, it was safe to assume that it had already begun. He stood there for a while, his brain thinking on how to go with it. At that moment, a status notification popped up in front of him. Welcome, Challenger. Your abilities are being scanned. Your challenge has begun. After these 3 notifications, his status suddenly popped up in front of him. _____. Alex Crown. Current HP, Hero Points 5889. Stats. Strength, 53.646, plus 15. Vitality, 54.235, plus 15. Speed, 57.789, plus 15. Stamina, 51.134, plus 15. Perception, 56.457, plus 15. Intelligence, 12.577, plus 15. Skills. Asterisk flexibility, LV6. Grants flexible and smooth movements during battles. Provides more balance to the body. You can use terrain features like walls, trees and other objects to run, jump and climb freely. With increased proficiency, you can climb tall buildings without falling. You can stick to surfaces for a while before falling down. In battles, there's a small chance for you to make impossible movements. Asterisk bullet time, LV7. Once every 24 hours, you can enter a state of accelerated movement and perception for 3 minutes, making everything seem extremely slow to your eyes. You can turn it on and off, hence not requiring to use the accumulated time in one go. It will automatically activate in crucial situations or if your life is in danger. From constant use, there's a chance for the skill to improve the stats perception and speed. Soul Companion. Asterisk Shadow Wolf, LV7. A special companion has been granted to you. A wolf that lives and hunts in the shadows. It has linked with your soul and has accepted you as its master. You can benefit from its powers. Your wolf has the ability to concentrate the energy in its body to shoot out energy blasts. Your wolf can create ghost wolves from a part of its body. Currently, 2 ghost wolves can be made. _____. Alex looked through his status screen with a smile. From where he had started, he has improved a hell lot. His stats were improving a little daily with exercise and 2 of his skills were already at level 7. Their improvement had gone down a lot since he had reached level 5 on them, but he didn't worry much. It was just like when in games, it was hard to level up after reaching a certain point. A lot of experience was needed. Level 1 has officially started. The tower has issued the challenge. Defeat a pack of flame wolves to move ahead. If you die in the Tower of Iraskis, you will lose your life in the real world too. As those messages appeared, he took out his sword from his inventory. The blade shined with a bit of lightning traveling through it. At that moment, strange symbols suddenly appeared on the floor. They reminded Alex of the summoning circles from a fantasy anime he used to watch. A bright, crimson light flashed on top of the symbols and suddenly, giant wolf monsters appeared in front of him. 20 wolves with 3 of them looking bigger than the rest. It seemed like the first challenge was to kill the wolves, and only then could he pass through. I thought they were called flame wolves, he muttered, and like the wolves were just waiting for him to say that, they howled. Ow-oo-oo. Instantly, their fur blazed as bolts of flames ran through it. It was like they were all on fire, but instead of the fire killing them, it was strengthening them. Only another wolf can deal with them. Thinking that, he called out his wolf and rushed at the blazing monsters. He was just on the first level, but it seemed like it would still pose him a good challenge. Soon, only the howls of wolves and the cracking of lightning could be heard. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s facilities, Nick Fury was busy talking with Maria Hill, the deputy director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and someone who Fury trusted a lot. But at the moment, they were in a heated argument. Director Fury, you can't restart Project Pegasus. You know why it was shut down, and the council only wants to gain more power for themselves. Don't go by what they want. Maria Hill said, hands on the desk as she looked at Fury with a sour expression on her face. I know that. But the council is skeptical. Especially after what happened in New Mexico. The threat of outer-world aliens coming to Earth to destroy it is far greater than worrying about the council. Fury said, thinking back to the destroyer attack in New Mexico. Even though he didn't agree with the council most of the time, he knew that they needed power. What if it doesn't go your way? Even Howard Stark wasn't able to do anything with it. They just found that the cube was the source of unlimited energy. We have better technology than before, and I have some people in mind. Brilliant minds. Maria shook her head, not fully convinced. The cube was too dangerous. That's why it was kept hidden for so long. Even if they found a way to harness its powers, it was hard to say if they would be able to control it. Look, I know your concerns. But the order is final, and I don't have the authority to do anything about it now. My job is to protect Earth, and I will do anything to ensure that it's protected. He looked at Maria for a while before finishing his words. Project Pegasus will begin again. We are calling it Phase 2. Maria Hill didn't say anything after hearing it. There were a lot of thoughts inside her mind, but they would just have to stay there. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Up to 15 advanced chapters are available on Patreon if you don't want to wait for the next update. https://www.patreon.com/extra26. Comment. 18 comments. Vote. Chapter 77, Chapter 0753 Doors. Chapter 075. Finally, there's no more. Alex took a deep sigh as he pulled his sword out of the flame wolf at his feet. The wolf whimpered slightly as the flames around its body disappeared. Soon, the monster turned into red particles shaped like shards that Alex assumed to be its soul. It has taken him a long time and some burn medicines, but he has managed to defeat the wolves. They were tougher than he was expecting, and the biggest of them even reminded him of Fenris, from Thor Ragnarok. Just with flames. The shards became invisible after a while as he went through the notifications that popped up. You have defeated all the flame wolves. You have cleared level 1 of the Tower of Iroskis. Flame resistance has permanently increased by 50% as a reward. I didn't know I would get a reward too. He thought as he dismissed the notifications from his vision. Then, he walked towards the 3 doors, curious to know why there were 3 of them and what each color implied. As he stepped closer, he noticed there were some words written on them, not in a language he knew. But he was able to understand what it meant. The Door of Strength. He looked at the red door. The door of puzzles. His eyes moved towards the green one. The door of mysteries. Finally, he stared at the yellow one. It seems like I have to choose one of them. Alex muttered, and it was easy to guess that it was just a way for him to choose a door that he was confident in. Problem was that he wasn't particularly confident in anything. First of all, he began by crossing out the green door, which was the door of puzzles. He wasn't really confident in puzzles, and he was pretty sure the tower was gonna throw mind games at him. Something which he didn't particularly enjoy. Now, the choice was between the red and the yellow door. It was fairly easy to understand what the red one meant. If he chose it, there was a high chance he would meet more monsters like the flame wolves, and actually, it wasn't a bad option. Alex was confident in his strength, and even though he wasn't as strong as something like the Hulk, he could still stand his ground against most types of enemies. Even if he failed to pass through a stage with his strength, he could just use his hero shop to find an item to help him out. But the yellow door, the door of mysteries, sounded nice too. He didn't know what he would face, but there was a sort of attraction towards the door. Maybe because it gave him a mysterious feeling. There was one more thing. Clearing the first level gave me a 50% increase in fire resistance. Maybe I can get more permanent boosts by clearing the levels. It was a clear chance for him to grow stronger and maybe even gain powers that would help him out in upcoming plotlines. There was no way Alex would mind a power that could help him defeat Thanos way before Endgame. And even after that, there would be villains like Mysterio, or maybe in the future, Galactus would come too. I need more power. Way more. Alex pondered for a while. Both the red and yellow doors made him want to enter them, but he could only choose one of the two. Finally, in the end, he placed his hand on the yellow door. A bright light enveloped him as he suddenly disappeared from level 1, and when he opened his eyes again, he was standing in a wide room. The floor was made up of square marble tiles and the atmosphere was very eerie. Though, this time, the room wasn't empty. It was filled with stone statues which resembled warriors, and most of them were holding some kind of weapon. He could see another yellow door on the other side, and the ceiling was the same as level 1. Is this a puzzle? He thought and frowned. Alex didn't like puzzles much, especially because he always used to fail in them in his past life. But currently, he needed to solve this one no matter what. As he was looking around the room, notifications appeared in front of him. Level 2 has officially started. Solve the room of stone soldiers. Reach the end and you will be able to pass through the level. If you die in the Tower of Iraskis, you will lose your life in the real world too. The 3 notifications were something Alex had expected, but they didn't end there. Another notification popped up suddenly. Luck applies. A hint has been generated. To be fair, the hint is written in the ancient devil language. As Alex read the notification, a stone tablet suddenly appeared next to him. Looking down on it, he noticed that it wasn't in a language that he understood. This must be the devil language. What the hell is this Tower of Iraskis? He muttered, shaking his head and frowning. There was no way he could understand such a language which he had never even heard before. Trying to find a solution, he opened the hero shop and searched through the items. Some kind of language translator, yes, there it is. After looking through it for 5 minutes, he finally found something that could help him. An item called translator glasses. It was an item that had a limited effect of just 1 day and it would stop working after that. Because of that, the price was only 110 HP. Buying it, he wore the glasses and looked at the tablet again. The words still were in the devil language, but after a while, they changed to English. Room of Stone Soldiers is made based on the souls of soldiers who were turned into stones due to failing a rebellion. They will attack you if you walk onto a particular tile. As you walk further into the room, the number of safe tiles will keep decreasing. Reading the hint, Alex frowned as he wondered how he was going to deal with this room. Comment. 26 comments. Vote. Chapter 78, Chapter 076 Super Soldier Variant. Chapter 076. Swish. A sharp slashing sound came out ahead of him as one of the ghost wolves that he had created got cut in two. The ghost wolves looked like his wolf, just smaller in size, and they were quite good if he had to fight more than one enemy. In this situation, he was using them to know which tile was safe to move to. Alex frowned seeing that his last ghost wolf was destroyed, but it didn't matter now. He was almost at the end of the room and didn't need his wolves. Taking a deep breath, he took a step ahead and glanced at the stone soldier nearest to him. Noticing no movement from it, he smiled. Only the last tile was left now, and then he could pass level 2. I don't have ghost wolves left now, so I can just risk it this time, Alex thought, and jumped on the next tile. Instantly, the eyes of the last stone soldier flashed and it moved its sword to behead Alex. But its sword would never reach Alex's neck in time. In his bullet time, Alex easily blocked the sword, and with another slash, he destroyed the stone soldier. After doing that, he grinned and moved towards the yellow door at the end. Notifications immediately sprang up in his vision. You have passed through the Room of Stone Soldiers. You have cleared level 2 of the Tower of Iraskis. Perception has increased by 5 points as a reward. Sweet reward, Alex thought inwardly as his perception increased. This reward was even better than the previous one, as perception was generally hard to increase. If I keep going like this, I definitely will get a lot stronger by the end, he muttered and hurried up. He didn't want to waste too much time by standing around and thinking. Putting his hand on the door, a yellow light enveloped him. When he opened his eyes, he was in another room and another challenge was in front of him. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In the Joint Dark Energy Mission Facility, one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most famous and important facilities, Fury entered through the front door. He was here to meet someone important to keep his plan going. Crazy events have made things harder, but they had also unveiled talented people. People who can help him out in his visions. He walked, thinking of the person he was here to meet, and soon, a man came into view. He was a middle-aged man wearing a simple shirt and pants. He seemed to be confused as he looked around the facility. Dr. Selvig. Fury called out to him and the man turned around. He was Eric Selvig, someone who had impressed Fury a lot with his work and research, especially on what went on in New Mexico. So, you're the man behind all this. It's quite a labyrinth. I was thinking that you had taken me down here to kill me. He chuckled as he walked towards Fury to shake his hand. He was shocked when S.H.I.E.L.D. had taken him away, saying that someone wanted to meet him, and now, the man was finally in front of him. I've been hearing about the New Mexico situation. Your work has impressed a lot of people who are much smarter than I am. I had a lot to work with. The Foster theory, a gateway to another dimension. It's unprecedented, isn't it? Eric said, thinking of Thor and the events that he had seen with his own eyes in the past few days. They made him feel crazy, but strangely better. After all, you don't find yourself too crazy when the world is going crazier. Legend tells us one thing, history, another. But, every now and then, we find something that belongs to both. Fury began as they walked through the facility. Eric kept looking around, but his ears were on the words that Fury was telling him. After a while, they reached a suitcase. Fury went around it and opened it slowly, revealing a small, shining cube that was giving off an energy that Eric had never seen before. "What is this?" he asked, eyes still looking at the cube. "Power, Doctor. If we figure out how to tap it, maybe unlimited power." At that moment, a strange energy, almost a shadow, that was behind Eric whispered to him, attracted by the cube and the power it holds. "Well, I guess that's worth a look," the strange energy said in his ears. "Well, I guess that's worth a look." Eric repeated his words, smiling. Fury nodded his head, happy that Eric had agreed to help him, not knowing what awaited him. On the side, inside a mirror, the strange energy revealed itself to be Loki, the god of mischief and the adopted brother of Thor. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. As Fury was talking with Eric Selvig, Felicia was walking into Oscorp. These days, the atmosphere of Oscorp was really off due to what had happened with Dr. Connors and the fact that rumors about the health of Norman Osborn were also spreading. Felicia didn't care too much about this as she was here for a reason. Her dad's birthday gift to her had revealed a major secret to her and she was heading towards his old lab. Her dad used to be a scientist in Oscorp and his lab was still there. It hadn't been transformed into someone else's lab because her mom didn't want anything to happen to it. Turning around a corner, she finally found her dad's old lab. It was in a restricted area in Oscorp and the only reason she was able to easily obtain access to it was thanks to her stealing her mother's ID before coming here. Entering the lab, she looked around before moving to a computer that held old files that hadn't been opened in a long time. She took out a pen drive and connected it. After a second, a file opened up in front of her eyes and Felicia smiled like a cat. Super Soldier Serum Variant C. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Up to 15 advanced chapters are available on Patreon if you don't want to wait for the next update. https://www.patreon.com/extra26. Comment. 19 comments. Vote. Chapter 79, Chapter 077 Great Rewards and Peter. Chapter 077. Level 5 has officially started. The tower has issued a challenge. Solve the riddles of the Riddler. If you die in the Tower of Iraskis, you will lose your life in the real world too. Alex looked at the notifications that had popped up and sighed. The previous rounds had tired him out and he hadn't been able to get any rest. Moreover, this round sounded like a puzzle. He glanced up, his eyes looking around the room before landing on the man standing in the middle of the room. He was a tall guy. Even taller than him and was wearing a white mask. Alex can see that his ears were pointy, indicating that he wasn't exactly a human. Maybe an elf or some other fantasy creature. At least I don't have to fight in this round, he thought, thinking back to the previous levels. In level 3 he needed to fight off a Minotaur in a room that was getting hotter every second. He only survived because of his fire resistance. In level 4 he needed to fight a Lich and his undead soldiers. It was a really hard fight and Alex even got cursed from time to time, but he was able to defeat it in the end. These two fights really tired him out and although the rewards were quite good, he still wanted some rest. Power of Minotaur, Berserk and the Book of Dark Summoning. He muttered the name of the rewards he had gotten and smiled. One was a skill that was quite a high-risk one, but it was a great one. The other was an item which would be quite useful to him in the future. It was actually a great surprise to him that he was able to get skills and items for completing the levels, but it was quite a nice surprise. Like this, he was just getting more and more stronger. He moved towards the masked guy thinking of his new powers and items. The masked guy smiled under his mask seeing Alex approach and made a graceful bow. "Welcome, challenger. Who are you and what's this level? How can I pass it?" he asked, not wasting time in introductions. "I'm the Riddler, master of riddles, and like the tower would have already notified you, the only way to pass this level is to answer my riddles," he said, then curled his lips up. "If you fail to answer it, your challenge will end here. I won't be able to go past this level. Yeah, the only other way is to do the challenge again, but it's common sense to know that one person can only challenge it once in his or her life." Alex didn't know if it was really common sense or not, but he absently nodded his head. The challenge began next, and the Riddler started asking his riddles in a cheerful manner, like he was enjoying every moment of it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. "So, Tony Stark offered you an internship?" "Yes, I'm going to be working in the Stark Tower after it's finished." "Is this just an internship or some superhero stuff too?" Alex asked as he looked at Peter, who had just finished telling him about how Tony Stark had come to meet him and offered him a chance to work together with him. Peter still looked excited and a beaming smile was on his face. "Things went at a rapid pace while I was in the tower," Alex thought inwardly. He has solved 2 of the riddles that the Riddler gave him, but before he could give out the next one, Alex left the tower because he was just too tired. After coming back to Earth from the portal, he discovered that Peter had sent him over 50 messages. Wondering what had happened, Alex asked him to meet him in a cafe. Obviously, superhero stuff is included. That's the main internship. Although Mr. Stark told me that he would give me a tour of the labs later. Peter whispered to him. "That's nice," Alex said with a wry smile. Originally, it was only in Civil War that Tony found out about Peter and recruited him. Going forward, they had a mentor-student relationship and it was almost like Tony was Peter's father. But in this universe, this has started even before the Avengers events. It was actually normal as Peter was already a teenager and had become Spider-Man. Alex was interested to know how things would go in this universe from here on. "Where were you? I was calling you and messaging you, but there was no reply for a long time," Peter asked, drinking his cappuccino. "Well, I was just busy. You know things. Those types of things. Kind of. I'm trying to get stronger these days." Peter raised his eyebrow hearing that. In his eyes, Alex was already quite strong and he had seen it quite well during the fight with the lizard. "How much stronger are you going to get? You are already quite strong. I still don't understand where your powers come from. Science doesn't believe in wolves living in souls, I don't care if science believes. There's more than science. I'm the proof." Peter meekly nodded his head at that. He was a science student, but he was really interested in the mystical wolf and powers Alex has. If he could, he would even like to do a bit of research on it. Boom! As they were talking, a loud noise suddenly sounded out from their surroundings. Both Peter and Alex were surprised, but they quickly calmed down and tried to understand what was going on. "Thief! There's a thief! Someone help! I'll handle it," Alex said and rushed out of the cafe, leaving Peter alone to pay the bills. Peter didn't try to follow Alex as he knew that he would be more than enough for a thief, but he cursed thinking he needed to pay the bills now. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Up to 15 advanced chapters are available on Patreon if you don't want to wait for the next update. https://www.patreon.com/extra26. Comment. 20 comments. Vote. Chapter 80, Chapter 078 Riddles. Chapter 078. Thank you really. I don't know what I would have done if you had not stopped the thief in time. It's fine. Alex shook the hand of the jewelry store manager whose store was robbed by a thief. He was in his lichen costume and the thief was tied up next to him. Thankfully, Alex was close by when the robbery happened and he had managed to stop it. Standing close to him, people were clicking photos of him and posting it online. He was already used to it by this point and just waved his hand at a couple of people. At that moment, he noticed a weird gaze on him and jerked his head. But there was no one and everything seemed normal. Then, he leapt off and disappeared. He still stuck to his plan of not wanting too much social media attention. Climbing on a rooftop, he started leaping across them and moved towards his house. It was when he was climbing on top of a building that he noticed the same gaze again. He turned around while holding onto the rail, but again, there was nothing. Weird. He muttered and decided to not think too much about it. Not too far from him, a girl in a black costume resembling a cat kept following him. Her costume was a leather one and it looked tight, but she has no problem moving around in it. Looking at Alex showing movements that defies the extent of human ability, she smiled. Quietly following him, she muttered under her mask. Interesting. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Alex walked inside level 5 and saw Riddler standing at the same spot. It seemed like the masked man didn't need to sleep or anything and could just stand in one place for eternity. You don't sleep. My soul is cursed by the Tower of Iraskis to stay in this place. I don't need to sleep or eat due to its powers and just need to welcome challengers like you. Are you ready for the final riddle? Yes. Alex nodded his head. After a night's sleep, his mind was fresh and he could go ahead in the tower. One reason he was trying to be fast was because the events of the first Avengers movie could start at any moment. He had been keeping a close eye on Eric Selvig these days and he had already resigned from his job at Culver University, meaning Fury had already recruited him. Alex needed more power to handle the attack of the Chitauri army and Loki. This will be your last riddle and if you answer correctly, you can move ahead. Riddler said and smirked. Then, he scribbled something in the air and the riddle came up in front of Alex. You measure my life in hours and I serve you by expiring. I'm quick when I'm thin and slow when I'm fat. Tell challenger, what am I? Alex stared at the riddle and began thinking about the answer. The first two riddles weren't easy, but they were something that Alex was able to find the answer of after thinking hard. This one seemed to be a bit tougher. Riddler smiled seeing Alex in a bind and laughed to himself. The riddles given by him were often enough to make the challengers hit their heads against the wall. Although Alex was able to give the answer to the first two, he was sure that he would falter at the third. But after 10 minutes, Alex opened his mouth. The answer is a candle. Riddler was surprised at the answer and wasn't able to say anything for a while. The notification containing the riddle changed after a while and Alex smiled. You have correctly answered the third riddle. You have answered all the riddles. You have passed the riddles of the Riddler. You have cleared level 5 of the Tower of Iroskis. Resistance to mind attacks has been increased by 70% and the chance to get brainwashed and mind-controlled has severely gone down. Alex felt a little tingling sensation in his mind after that notification. He shook it away as Riddler came towards to shake his hand. Congratulations. I didn't think you would be able to pass this level, Riddler said and bowed gracefully, giving respect to someone who had solved his riddles. The next levels would be hard, but I'm pretty sure someone like you with both strength and wisdom will succeed. Now move along. Thanks, Alex said and went ahead. Putting his hand on the door, a golden light enveloped him and he was in a different room. This time, the room was cold and Alex's whole body started shivering. What is this? He thought as he looked around the room. Snow was falling from the ceiling and snow was everywhere. The floor was covered in ice and he couldn't help but check in the hero shop for a sweater that would help him deal with the cold. Level 6 has officially started. The tower has issued a challenge. Defeat the Wyvern of Ice Kalisis. If you die in the Tower of Iroskis, you will lose your life in the real world too. Looking up at the notifications, he bitterly thought. So, I finally have to deal with a dragon. Though a wyvern just resembles a dragon. As he thought that, a summoning symbol that Alex has already gotten familiar with appeared on the floor and a large roar resounded out. Kaoru! A large wyvern appeared in the center of the room, its eyes looking over him like he was some sort of food. It flapped its wings and smiled, towering over Alex. Its eyes shone as a large sphere of energy formed in his mouth. Oh fuck, he knows Ice Beam. Alex thought as he let out his wolf to protect him from the attack. The battle began in earnest then as the truly hard levels of the Tower of Iroskis began. During his battle, he didn't notice a pair of red eyes watching over him. Alex had finally managed to attract the attention of the ruler of the Tower of Iroskis, Dantalion. Comment. 25 comments. Vote. Chapter 81, Chapter 079 Kalisis. Chapter 079. In the Tower of Iroskis, Alex was locked in an intense battle with the Wyvern of Ice Kalisis. All around him, a cold mist was blowing and his clothes had a dusting of snow on them. The fight had already been going on for more than half an hour and it had been a close contest until now. Alex had managed to injure the wings of Kalisis, making it stay on the ground. With its body size, it was easy for Alex to attack it. After all, Kalisis couldn't run anywhere. It was the price it had to pay for its enormous size. And Alex took complete advantage of it and Kalisis' attack power started to drop lower and lower as the battle went on. Currently, the dragon-like creature was forming ice missiles around itself. This was the attack that had killed most of its opponents. But as the missiles got launched, Alex activated his bullet time and dodged the attacks with precise movements and his wolf standing next to him fired an energy blast from its mouth. Kalisis tried to block the energy blast with magic. Dragons were masters of magic and wyverns had inherited the art from them. Though, they weren't able to use even 10% of the magic that could be used by the dragons. Proving that, the energy blast destroyed the ice wall created by Kalisis and hit its neck and a painful cry came out. This is my chance. Alex thought and his wolf enveloped his body, strengthening him even more. Then, pushing energy into his legs and with lightning on the tip of his blade, he rushed towards Kalisis. The wyvern saw this and tried to block Alex's path but it was all futile. He dodged the ice beams and spikes with precise and clean movements. Callisus became angrier and angrier seeing this, and a hint of fear seeped into its heart. As if the challenger before him might really defeat him. Thinking that, Callisus began to form a spell above its head. Flying was not possible due to its wings being injured, and it had no choice but to go all out. In an instant, a large sphere of ice that could freeze anything in the world formed above Callisus' head. He's going all out. Alex thought, and immediately unleashed the skill that he has gotten recently. Notifications popped up in front of him as he focused on his power. You have used the skill Berserk. Your powers have gone up by 250% for the next 2 minutes. You won't be able to move for an hour after using this power. Like its description, Berserk is a skill that has a lot of restrictions, and his body has to endure a lot to use this skill. But it was all worth it. After all, so much increase in his powers was basically overkill, and he was sure that he would be able to kill Callisus with Berserk. Ah, fuck, my body is burning. Alex cursed as he felt his body becoming hotter and hotter. At the same time, he could feel the growing power inside of him. It felt like the power would explode inside of him, and he did his best to keep it in control. He glanced up to look at the sphere of ice that kept getting bigger and bigger. Suddenly, Callisus's eyes flashed and it launched the ice sphere at Alex. He wasn't afraid and moved the power in his body into his sword. Lightning crackled and his wolf enveloped it, giving it the necessary durability. Finally, he jumped up and the sphere of ice and Alex's sword met in midair. Then it all went white. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. You have killed the Wyvern of Ice Callisus. You are the first challenger to go past Callisus and give it eternal rest. The title Killer of the Wyvern has been granted. All physical stats have increased by 10. You have cleared level 6 of the Tower of Iroskis. Ice resistance has increased by 70%. You have gotten the skill Wyvern Rush. Smiling at the notifications, Alex moved his gaze up to see the body of Callisus turning into red shards and disappearing. Now that he had cleared level 6, only the top parts awaited him. He wondered what would be the challenge ahead of him, but his body couldn't move. The side effect of Berserk. He frowned thinking about it and collapsed onto the ground. It was almost impossible to move his body, and he needed to wait for an hour before he could move on. The skill is powerful, but this is so annoying. Alex muttered and closed his eyes. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In the joint dark energy facility, both SHIELD and NASA scientists were working hard to study the Tesseract. Until now, they had made some fascinating discoveries. But it was really hard to control the input and output of the power, as the energy fluctuations were really wild. There were already protocols in place in case they needed to evacuate the place. Currently, Clint Barton, one of SHIELD's top agents and codenamed Hawkeye, was talking to Eric Selvig. "Are you really okay?" Clint asked, looking over at Eric's face. "You are not sleeping much, and I heard that you were seen talking to yourself in your room." These days, Eric's behavior was getting weirder and weirder. One of the reasons Clint was sent here was also to monitor him. "I'm fine." Eric shook his head. "I'm just too busy with the research and lonely. I just miss my wife and kids." "I can understand that. But tell me if there's anything strange. We need you if the project is to be successful." Eric smiled like he understood. Suddenly, his eyes changed a bit as he opened his eyes. "I understand, Agent. By the way, you were there in New Mexico too, right?" Clint nodded his head, not realizing that the question wasn't exactly asked by Eric but the power that was controlling him from the shadows. Loki continued to control Eric and awaited the moment when he could reveal himself to the world and rule over the mortals. Comment. 22 comments. Vote. Chapter 82, Chapter 080 Clone. Chapter 080. Level 7 of the Tower of Iroskis was pretty straightforward. And seeing the information about it in front of him, Alex couldn't help but shake his head. Level 7 has officially started. The tower has issued a challenge. Defeat your clone in a 1-to-1 fight. If you fail to do it, the clone will take your place. If you die in the Tower of Iroskis, you will lose your life in the real world too. He looked at the room in front of him. A battlefield was spread out and a mirror was placed in the middle of it. In it, Alex's reflection was shown in the mirror. But as Alex walked towards the mirror, his reflection showed no movements. He found it strange, but at that moment, his reflection suddenly smirked at him. He stopped in his steps and took out his sword. But his reflection didn't follow his movements. Suddenly, the mirror started shaking and his reflection stepped out of the mirror and stood in front of Alex. The costume of the clone took a deeper shade and a crazy smile hung on his lips. This is kind of creepy, he thought and shook his head. After fighting a wyvern, he felt like he could go against anything. But going against a clone was still weird enough. As he was standing there thinking what to do in this situation, his clone suddenly spoke up. You are weak. I'm better than you. His voice was the same as Alex, but it had more strength, like he was desperate to prove a point. Alex didn't show any emotions with his clone speaking and just frowned. You are just a clone. There's no need for me to hear you talk. Let's get this over with, he said and rushed at his clone. His sword cut through the air followed by a swishing sound, but his clone dodged the strike with smooth movements and jumped in the air, putting distance between them. He knows flexibility. Alex guessed that his clone has all of his skills and they are probably at the same level too, if not higher. He wondered if the clone also has its wolf, and in just the next second, he found the answer. A shadow leapt out from his clone's body and jumped at Alex. It was a giant wolf, same as the one he owned. Nice. A clone wolf. The clone wolf jumped at him, trying to slash his neck with its claws, but Alex blocked the attack and threw it off, releasing his own wolf at the same time. His wolf jumped at its clone version. Both of them started fighting among themselves and battled to decide who was better among them. Let's deal with you now, Alex muttered and turned towards his clone, who had also taken out his own sword. The clone rushed towards him and Alex followed suit. The sound of swords clashing and lightning crackling resounded throughout the room as both of them went all out against each other. You can't compare to me, his clone shouted and sent a lightning strike at him, which Alex dodged by rolling on the floor. He aimed at the clone's leg, but his attack was easily dodged. His fighting style is exactly like me. If we keep fighting like this, there won't be a winner. We will just exhaust each other out. Alex thought about a way to win against his clone, thinking of a weak point in his style, but nothing came to his mind. He had never really bothered to think about his weak points, and there wasn't very much time for him to think about them now. Die! His clone yelled and activated bullet time. Alex did the same, and for the next few minutes, it was hard to follow their movements. Both of them were too fast for the naked eye. It was like one of those fast-paced anime fights. You are weak. Give me your place, his clone roared as he slashed against his arm. The blade barely touched Alex's arm as he counterattacked with a kick. I'm not weak. You are. You can't even kill a person. The clone laughed and, as if proving what he had said, tried to plunge his sword into Alex's chest. But I can. That was close. Alex thought inwardly as he barely blocked the attack. But before he could do anything else, his clone kicked him in the chest, sending him flying across the floor. He groaned as his clone slowly walked towards him. Like I said, you are weak. That kid. Black Sky died, because you were too weak. Hearing that, an indescribable expression appeared on Alex's face. He had been struggling with that ever since the events that had transpired on the dock. Styx's words would often resound in his mind. That he was too soft-hearted to kill. That he needed to change it to become better. That killing was just necessary sometimes. No, it's not the time to think about this. He thought and shook his head. Frowning, he stood up and looked at his clone who was slowly stepping towards him. I may be weak, he muttered. But I'm at least better than you. Saying that, he rushed towards his clone. His clone smiled like he was expecting this and did the same. But at that moment, Alex did something strange. He threw his sword at his clone. With lightning roaring at its tip, the sword flew through the air. The clone stopped in his tracks and tried to block it, but something strange happened. The sword suddenly changed its trajectory. What? A surprise yelp came out from the clone's mouth at the unexpected scene in front of him. In the end, he was not able to block it and the sword struck him in his chest. Alex smiled seeing this and looked at the item in his hand. Mana thread. It was an item from the hero shop. Although the clone had all his skills, he didn't have the hero shop or the system. Comment. 25 comments. Vote. Chapter 83, Chapter 081. The other. Chapter 081. Since he had received his system, Alex knew that it was special. No one could see it except for him, and the system updates and boosts he would get from time to time made him feel like someone was watching over him. To top it off, his system was not even detected by the Tower of Iroskis. So, he had made a conclusion that even his clone won't be able to copy it. Just because a system like this was too powerful, and at least in Marvel, balance between powers was really necessary. It has also worked. His clone wasn't able to understand why his sword had suddenly changed trajectory. The mana thread attached to it was invisible and one could only try to sense it. Even then, it was not easy at all. Because of that, it was an expensive item, but it was also worth it. I wonder what kind of reward I will get from this round. He thought as he saw his clone slowly turning into red shards. The expression on his clone's face was blank, like the life inside was already dead. Alex felt like he was seeing himself die since the clone was basically him, but tried not to think too much about it. In the distance, the clone wolf was also turning into shards, and Alex's wolf looked proud after defeating someone who was basically an imposter. At that moment, notifications popped up in front of him. You have killed your own clone. You have achieved something that only 3 people before you have been able to do. The title Better Than His Shadow has been granted. Invisible stats charm and luck has been increased by 5. You have cleared level 7 of the Tower of Iroskis. Congratulations. You have been granted a special skill ticket to live. Wow. The rewards are way better than I thought. Alex muttered, going over the notifications. The first notification gave him information that only 3 people before him had reached level 8 via the other 2 paths of the tower. The second notification was about his second title. Like video games, Tower of Iraskis also granted him titles and they had the ability to increase his stats. It's the first time I'm hearing about invisible stats. Am I more handsome now? He thought as he touched his face, but there was nothing weird. Maybe it was something that only others can notice, or the change was just too small. Moving on, he looked at his new skill. Ticket to live. Alex muttered, unsure of what it means, and pulled up the skill information. _____. Ticket to live, no level. After dying, you can use the ticket to resurrect your body. There's a chance of side effects after resurrection. It can only be used once. The ticket is bound to the user and it can't be used on anyone else. A special ticket granted by the god of death. _____. What the fuck? Alex wasn't able to stop himself from cursing after reading the information. The ticket was basically the strongest skill in his arsenal. After all, almost nothing can be done to stop death, but with this ticket, he could resurrect. It could only be used once, but that was already more than enough. Asking for more would practically break the balance of the world. With this, I would be fine even if I fail a level. Alex thought and walked towards the door. A golden light enveloped him as he put his hand on it, and with that, he started his quest to conquer level 8 of the Tower of Iraskis. ****. In a world devoid of any light, Loki, the god of mischief, was kneeling in front of a clothed, armored figure. He was known as the Other, the personal servant of the Mad Titan, and today, his master has asked him to hand over an important artifact to Loki. The Other felt happy about it, as his master's plans were finally beginning to start. They just needed the 6 stones and they could achieve whatever they wanted. Loki was going to collect one of them for his master. The Tesseract has awakened. It is on a small world, a human world. They would wield its power. The Other slowly said, holding a staff in his hands. It was called the Scepter, holding powers that others would never imagine. He looked down upon Loki, who smiled upon seeing the scepters. He slowly held the scepter in his hands, feeling its power between his fingers as the Other continued. But our ally knows its workings as they never will. He is ready to lead, and our force, our Shitori, will follow. He turned behind him and gazed upon millions of alien soldiers standing there. No, there were more. Billions, maybe trillions. An alien race controlled by his master called Shitori. They were brainless and ready to follow any orders. To wreak havoc upon the lower worlds. They just needed a portal to go through, and the Tesseract would be the medium to open it. The world will be his. The universe, yours. And the humans, what can they do but burn? The Other spoke slowly, and Loki's smile just grew wide. His ambition to control humans and rule over them was on the brink, and it had brought him to seek the help of someone who was clearly dangerous. But Loki was confident in his abilities. Your master will not be disappointed. He said slowly, and the Other nodded his head, content. With this army, there was nothing stopping Loki from burning the whole Earth down. After all, the humans' planet wasn't technologically advanced enough to stop something like an alien invasion. They would need way more than tanks and missiles to do anything to an army of trillions. Unfortunately, the Other didn't take in account some individuals who were living their own life but were soon going to come together to stop something that no one thought was possible. After all, it was the world's will, and the true God, seeing it all, wanted the same. Comment. 32 comments. Vote. Chapter 84, Chapter 082 City of Iroskis. Chapter 082. Alex had been climbing the Tower of Iroskis for a while now, preparing for the events of the first Avengers movie. He wanted to be stronger to face Loki and his Shi'Tori army. Until now, he had seen many things. He fought the flame wolves and even a wyvern that shot out ice. He solved puzzles and fought his own clone. He thought that he had seen everything, especially after going through level 8 and 9. Both of those levels were really hard and level 9 was even like his worst nightmare came true. In level 8 he needed to make his way out over a long bridge in 10 minutes while dodging the attacks that were randomly thrown at him. He nearly fell from the bridge twice and once, a bullet grazed his ear, but somehow he managed to cross the bridge just before the timer ran out. As for the reward, he got a very simple but useful skill called Weapon Mastery. It allowed him to wield any weapon and have basic proficiency in it. It looked simple, but it was one of the best skills Alex could have gotten. On level 9 he needed to make his way through a big room full of traps. It sounded easy, but he had a penalty. He was blind throughout level 9. Yes, for the entire level, his eyes only saw darkness and he needed to rely on his other senses to go through the room. The only reason he was even able to pass the level was because of his wolf, who went into hibernation after protecting him from so many attacks. Still, in the end, he had a lot of injuries and he was bleeding from a lot of places after completing the level. Alex had to buy the most expensive healing potions and ointments to heal his wounds. The potions tasted like shit, but he didn't have the time to think about the taste. All in all, it was a horrible experience and even his reward wasn't able to sweeten it. Though, it was something pretty good. It was a weapon that Alex didn't have any use for currently. But he was sure that he would be able to use the weapon one day. For now, the weapon was sitting in his inventory. All this still paled in comparison to the view that he got when the golden light transported him to level 10, the final level before he could fight the demon lord Dantalion. When he opened his eyes the first time in level 10, he saw something that made him doubt his eyes. It's a fantasy city. In front of him was a marketplace with people walking around wearing medieval clothes. On the side, he could see some people in armor talking, and there was even a carriage of a noble passing by. It made him feel like he had suddenly been eyes-keyed to a fantasy world. At that moment, notifications popped up in front of him. Level 10 has officially started. You are in the ruined world of Iroskis before it fell to the demon lords. You are trapped in a fragment of time. The Tower of Iroskis has issued a challenge. Get close to the King of Iroskis and assassinate him. If you fail to do so, you will forever be trapped in this fragment of time. If you die in the Tower of Iroskis, you will lose your life in the real world too. So, this is Iroskis. Alex thought as he read through the notifications. Until now, he didn't have very many clues about what this Tower of Iroskis is, but now, he was starting to understand. I need to find more information, he thought as he looked around. And how will I even assassinate the king? Glancing at his quest for this level, he felt a headache. But there was no way to get out of this. He tried to open the portal that will take him back to Earth but failed. It seemed like he was really trapped here until he could assassinate the king. Like that, his final quest started, and unknown to him, a gaze silently watched over him, waiting for Alex to reach him. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It was late at night and one of the most important shield research facilities was in turmoil. People were being evacuated by helicopter and vehicles, worry evident in their eyes. They didn't know what was happening, but they were ordered to get out no matter what they were doing. At that moment, one helicopter landed on the compound. Nick Fury and Maria Hill walked out from it and walked towards Coulson, who was waiting for them there. "How bad is it?" Nick Fury asked, walking inside with the other two following him. "That's the problem, sir. We don't know." Coulson shook his head and Fury rushed his steps. The three of them entered a facility, technicians and scientists running past them to get out of the facility. "Dr. Selvig read an energy surge from the Tesseract 4 hours ago. NASA didn't authorize Selvig to go to test phase." Fury grunted as the testing phase was not going to start so soon, but Coulson quickly chipped in. He wasn't testing it. He wasn't even in the room. Spontaneous event. It just turned itself on. Maria asked from behind them, surprised by what Coulson was saying. "Where are the energy levels now?" Fury asked. "Climbing. When Selvig couldn't shut it down, we ordered evac." "How long will it take to get everyone out?" Fury asked, frowning. "The camp should be clear in the next half hour." "Do better," Fury said, and they went further into the facility. His head hurt thinking about the mess that suddenly had appeared out of nowhere. "Sir, evacuation may be futile," Maria Hill said, but Fury shook his head. "Should we tell them to go back to sleep? If we can't control the Tesseract's energy, there may not be a minimum safe distance." Fury stopped in his tracks for a moment, contemplating what she said, and ordered, "I need you to make sure Phase 2 prototypes are shipped out." "Sir, is that really a priority right now?" she asked, not happy with her superior's words. "Until such time as the world ends, we will act as though it intends to spin on. Clear out the tech below. Every piece of Phase 2 on a truck and gone." She wasn't able to say anything against those words, and they didn't have much time left. "Yes, sir," she said, and turned towards some agents standing nearby with me. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Up to 15 advanced chapters are available on Patreon if you don't want to wait for the next update. https://www.patreon.com/extra26. Comment. 16 comments. Vote. Chapter 85, Chapter 083, Loki Invasion. Chapter 083. Nick Fury and Agent Phil Coulson walked with hurried steps, entering the radiation facility housing the Tesseract. The area was cluttered with machines and scientists and researchers leaving in shock and fear. Fury glanced at Eric Selvig and walked towards him with Coulson following him. "Talk to me, Doctor." As Fury said that, the Tesseract started glowing very bright and a flare of blue shot out from it, hitting things at random. Concerned, some scientist backed away as Fury glared at Eric. "Director," Eric said. "Is there anything we know for certain?" "The Tesseract is misbehaving." Fury snorted like he had heard something ridiculous. "Is that supposed to be funny?" "No, it's not funny at all. The Tesseract is not only active, she's behaving." Eric shook his head. "I assume you pulled the plug. She's an energy source. If we turn off the power, she turns it back on. If she reaches peak level." Eric didn't finish his sentence, but Fury fully understood what he meant. Glancing at the Tesseract, he opened his mouth. "We've prepared for this, Doctor. Harnessing energy from space. We don't have the harness. My calculations are far from complete. And she's throwing off interference, radiation. Nothing harmful, low levels of gamma radiation. That can be harmful, he said, then thought of something before asking. Where's Agent Barton? The hawk. Up in his nest, as usual. Fury raised his head up and noticed one of his best agents, Clint Barton, dressed in black tactical gear, up on the railings watching them below. He tapped on his earpiece and called him down. Agent Barton, report. Clint rappelled down from the catwalk, and walked up to Fury. For a second, he gave a nod to Coulson before Fury whispered to him in a discreet manner. I gave you this detail so you could keep a close eye on things. Well, I see better from a distance, he replied. Did you see anything that might have set this thing off? Fury asked, and at that moment, a NASA scientist shouted, looking at Eric. Doctor, it's spiking again. Clint looked at the scientist before looking back to Fury. No one has left or arrived. And Selvig's clean. No contacts, no I.ms. If there was any tampering, sir, it wasn't on this end. A confused expression crossed Fury's face upon hearing that. At this end? Yeah, the cube is a doorway to the other end of space, right? Doors open from both sides. Clint explained, and Fury nodded his head. At that moment, stuff around them started to change. In the distance, Eric typed on his keyboard and the monitor flashed. Suddenly, the Tesseract thundered and shook the entire facility. Both Coulson nearby, and Maria Hill topside, felt the tremors as the cube glowed brighter and emitted a ring of light, which quickly became like a beam, similar to the Bifrost Bridge that Eric saw in New Mexico. The power drifted to the edge of the platform and began to form a vortex, which became a portal. Darkness appeared in the center of the portal, and a gust of blue energy knocked people back. The cloud shot to the ceiling, and the portal on the platform opened up as a man wearing a unique attire and holding a staff which looked a bit like a spear stepped through. Loki. Eric silently muttered. The portal vanished behind him and Loki grinned at everyone, holding his staff. He frowned as he saw Fury and his agents looking up at him. Sir, please put down the spear, Fury said as he held his gun towards Loki. Loki simply responded by firing a blast of blue energy from his staff, trying to kill Fury. Before it could reach him, Clint narrowly tackled Fury out of the way. Immediately, everyone started shooting at Loki, but the bullets deflected off of him, as if mere bullets could never do anything to a godlike being like him. One by one, Loki quickly took down everyone shooting at him, with knives and energy blasts from his staff. He paused to grin at everyone, and looked around to see who would be brave enough to attack him next. At that moment, Clint moved to attack him, but Loki grabbed his wrist, disarming him. You have heart, he muttered, holding him close to his staff. He placed the tip of the staff against Clint's chest. Hawkeye's eyes glowed black and he stopped resisting. After that, Loki began controlling the other agents around the room. While all that was going on, Fury sneaked up, grabbed the Tesseract, and placed it in a briefcase, trying to get out of the facility before Loki could cause more damage. Please don't. I still need that. Loki moved towards Fury and smiled at him. This doesn't have to get any messier, Fury said, still holding the Tesseract. Of course it does. I've come much too far for anything else. I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose. He said that line like he was always meant to say it. Watching all this, Eric muttered, Loki, brother of Thor. We have no quarrel with your people, Fury said, trying to talk it out as his senses were telling him that it wasn't wise to go against Loki in a battle. An ant had no quarrel with a boot. He replied, looking down at Fury like he was a servant. Are you planning to step on us? I come with glad tidings of a world made free. Free from what? Fury asked, and Loki replied like he was doing him a favor. A snooky smile hung on his lips. Freedom. Freedom is life's great lie. Once you accept that, in your heart. His words trailed off as he turned to face Eric, who was standing behind him. As he placed his staff against Eric's heart, his eyes glow black, and Loki muttered. You will know peace. Yeah, you say peace, I kind of think you mean the other thing. Fury shook his head, and at that moment, a loud explosion happened. Comment. 20 comments. Vote. Chapter 86, Chapter 084 History. Chapter 084. The Tower of Eraskis has issued a challenge. Get close to the King of Eraskis and assassinate him. If you fail to do so, you will forever be trapped in this fragment of time. Alex stared at the message and frowned. Rubbing his forehead, he looked down at the book titled History and Mysteries of the Eraskis Empire on the table that he had just finished. It had been 3 days since he had been stuck on level 10 and time was ticking away. To finish his quest, he first needed to get information. So, for the last 3 days, he had been asking the residents of Eraskis questions about the place and the king. Thankfully, he could use his hero points as a currency, so he was able to get a room in an inn and even bribe some soldiers to find out more about the king. Today, Alex had come to the public library to learn about the history of Eraskis, and what he found surprised him. Apparently, Eraskis was the name of the biggest empire in the world that was 5,000 years old. Despite being so old, it was still going on. Although Alex had heard that the current king was not a good king and the threat of the demon king was scaring people, as this was the year that a fight between humans and demons were most likely to start. The worst thing was that Eraskis hadn't found the hero from the prophecy yet. It's a cliché demon king vs hero world. After reading the book, Alex muttered. He gazed out of the window, then turned towards the librarian who was passing by his table. His mind began to race as he made a summary of what was going on. He could already guess a lot with the information he had acquired. If it's really a cliché fantasy world, then a hero would be found soon and a fight against the demons will start. In the end, humans will win and the hero is gonna be married to a harem and become the next king. But going by the information that was revealed to him, nothing like that happened. The demon lord probably won the battle going by the fact that I'm in a fragment of time. The hero. I don't know if he fought the battle or not. But he at least never won. Alex also guessed that the king had a hand in the demons winning the race war. After all, he was supposedly corrupt according to many people in the inn he was staying at. There was also the fact that his quest in level 10 was to assassinate the king. The system prompts said that I was in a time before Eraskis was ruined. So, after winning the war, the demon lords probably ruined Eraskis and created the Tower of Eraskis. There was no guarantee that what Alex was thinking was correct, but that was the only scenario that made sense. Anyway, the main thing here was to find a way to assassinate the king. There's some kind of barrier around the palace. In the center of the large city, there was the royal palace, and Alex had already tried to sneak into it. But a barrier had stopped him from entering. He had tried to destroy the barrier, but it was practically impossible to do it. Eraskis was famous for its magic crafts, and the barrier was one of them. No one other than those invited by the royal family can enter the palace, and the king doesn't go out often. It was incredibly hard to assassinate someone like him. There would be a way. If I don't hurry, I will miss the Avengers events. Alex thought in his mind and left the library. He needed to find a way today no matter what. Roaming around the town, he didn't know what to do. A fantasy world was cool, but he didn't have time to sightsee. He just kept going around, trying to think of a way to get close to the king. His steps led him to the Adventurers Guild, the most common place in a isekai novel. Barbarians and warriors were drinking on the back, and he could see some teenagers looking around with a nervous expression. They were the rookies that every fantasy novel had. Most of them get killed at the start depending on how light-hearted the author wanted the novel to be. There was a table full of females and just one blonde guy who was flustered as the girls kept sticking their bodies with him. The beta harem protagonist. Alex thought and walked through the guild and reached reception, where a female elf receptionist was standing. Ah, elf receptionist. Another cliché. He thought in his mind and chuckled. His plan was to just ask some questions, but before he could speak, the receptionist opened her mouth. Hello, are you here to register as an adventurer? Or you want to simply sign up for the annual Royal Arena competition? No, I am not here to register. But what is the Royal Arena competition? Alex asked, attracted by the word royal. It's a competition that is held every year as a tradition of the royal family. The winner of it would be bestowed a gift by the Majesty himself. His eyes widened as the receptionist explained. So, you mean the king would attend the event? Yeah, he will be there. The winner would even get to have a talk with him for a few minutes. He smirked hearing that. 5 minutes. That was more than enough to assassinate the king. He finally found a way. I would like to register for it, he said, and looked towards the elf receptionist. At that moment, Alex didn't know that a certain god of mischief had already landed on Earth, and New York would need his services soon. ****. Up to 15 advanced chapters are available on Patreon if you don't want to wait for the next update. https://www.patreon.com/extra26. Comment. 17 comments. Vote. Chapter 87, Chapter 085, Royal Arena. Chapter 085. The Royal Arena competition will begin in a while. Let's give up a cheer for all the warriors that are going to participate in this competition. A cheer erupted from the crowd as the announcer shouted out loudly. In front of him was a mic that was enchanted with magic. Using that, he was able to amplify his voice throughout the arena. I will explain the rules one by one. Over 100 warriors from all around the world will battle it out with each other, and only the last standing will win the title of the arena champion. The announcer said, and people went wild. This competition was highly anticipated every year because it was one of the few festivals that the people of Iraskis would get to see. Moreover, they would be able to behold magic arts in this competition, as only the best of the warriors would participate today, only those who could use magic arts. The first round will see 126 warriors duking it out in a royal rumble until only 16 warriors remain standing. They will then get to move on to the next round. That means 110 warriors will be eliminated. The announcer shouted and then began to explain the rules of the competition, which weren't many. The only rule was that killing was not allowed, and other than that, one didn't have to take care of anything else. Now, the King of Iraskis will ignite the royal torch and the competition will begin. the announcer said and pointed at a platform where the royal family were sitting. They were protected by the royal guards who were the strongest knights in the empire. Please give a round of applause to King Edward II. After those words, a young man with shining blonde hair and a face that looked like he was in his early 20s walked up to the center and a red magic symbol appeared on his palm. A torch was standing there. A red flame with an indescribable glow shot out of the magic symbol and landed on the torch. The crowd erupted in joy at that and thus, the competition started. He's too young. Alex, who was watching all this from the participant arena, was keeping a close eye on the king who was his target. He had already prepared for the competition and was pretty sure of his victory. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Now, the anticipated Royal Rumble will finally begin in a few minutes. The announcer shouted and Alex looked around. A lot of people were eyeing him as they had never seen him before. In these types of competition, the best strategy was to eliminate the weaker participants and then go for the stronger ones. Due to his build and a face that doesn't look threatening, Alex looked like an easy target to many. He could only smirk, realizing their perception of him. They are going to receive a big surprise. Thinking that, he quietly waited for the start. Finally, the round started and 5 participants suddenly leaped for Alex. One of them was a burly man who took out his cleaver and slashed at him. But before it could touch him, Alex's sword blocked him. The burly guy was shocked by the speed Alex pulled out his sword, but before he could attack again, his wolf leaped out from his body, smashing into the burly man. He was immediately knocked unconscious and therefore eliminated. A commotion erupted from a corner of the audience as they saw the giant wolf protecting Alex. The announcer also saw it and shouted, "We all have a summoner among the participants. The round is getting more and more interesting." The other participants who were aiming for Alex stopped in their tracks when they saw a giant wolf protecting him. They hesitated to go ahead and risk being eliminated like the burly man. But one of them, a mage wearing a blue robe, went ahead and opened his mouth in front of Alex. I didn't expect a summoner to be here. I'm Erwin from the Blue Mage Guild. If you agree to get eliminated by my hands, I will give you the honor to work with the Blue Mage Guild." "No thanks." And Blue Mage Guild. Creativity is really dying these days. Alex said, and from the tip of his sword, a lightning strike released. Shocked, he tried to make a barrier, but it wasn't enough to stop the lightning strike. With a thundering roar, the mage was eliminated. People started whispering about Alex after seeing it, and even the nobles sitting on higher platforms took notice of him. Who is he? He took out Erwin in one strike. I was sure he would advance to the next round. Fuck. I was betting on him. Stupid midge. The betting booth isn't closed yet, right? Let me bet on that summoner. What's his name? Lycan. Alex didn't let those whispers affect him and started actively targeting the other participants. Every minute, his sword would strike someone and they would fall. His wolf stood close to him and attacked anyone trying to stealthily attack Alex. It wasn't like there were only weak participants in the completion, but after going through so many levels, Alex was stronger than ever. There were only a few participants that he had trouble dealing with. For example, he needed to use bullet time to deal with an assassin, and it took more than 30 minutes for him to defeat a warrior who had an orc bloodline. But even with those difficulties, Alex was easily able to obtain a spot as one of the 16 participants who would advance to the next round. Congratulations to all the warriors that are able to advance to the next round. Also, let's give a round of applause for all the brave hearts that participated in the competition. The blessings of God of War will always be with them. With that, the first round officially ended and Alex made his way through to the next round with a big smile on his face. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Up to 15 advanced chapters are available on Patreon if you don't want to wait for the next update. https://www.patreon.com/extra26. Comment. 12 comments. Vote. Chapter 88, Chapter 086 Finals. Chapter 086. Ah, this feels good. Alex thought as he waved his hand at the people who were cheering for him. In front of him was a man unconscious on the floor. The area around him was a little burned and he seemed to have a lot of injuries. His arms and legs had lethal bite marks and there was blood dripping off his chest. There was even a small wound on his head, which was also the reason why he was unconscious. He was Derek, one of the semi-finalists of the Royal Arena competition. He went by the title Sword Master of Light, and similar to his name, he was rather strong, having learned the magic arts of light straight from the Church of God of Light in the capital. However, Alex had been able to defeat him and advance to the final round. When Derek had fallen, many people in the crowd had let out shocked gasps. He was thought of as the warrior most likely to win the competition this year, but had been defeated by someone who was practically unknown before this competition. With this fight over, we are left with the final round, which will begin in a while. Let's cheer for Lycan, who will be fighting with last year's champion Kyle Greenwich, son of Duke Greenwich. The announcer shouted out loudly as Alex went back to the waiting room. Expensive potions to rejuvenate his health were already there and they were free for him to drink. He gulped down 2 of them and any exhaustion he felt was gone in a minute. Sitting on a chair, he bitterly thought, I need to hurry. The events of Avengers have most likely already started. He had been noting down the period in which every event would start, and by this time, Loki should have already stolen the Tesseract, forcing Fury to start gathering the Avengers. Let's use all my power and finish this in one blow. Alex muttered and closed his eyes. In the quarter-finals, he had fought with a guy who resembled a cultivator from those Wuxia novels Alex used to read. After their fight, he had gone to meet him and gotten a breathing technique. It was similar to the technique he had gotten from Chakra Dojo, but way more advanced. It helped him concentrate a lot more and focus his powers way better compared to before. Finally, after an hour, he exited his meditative state due to a knock on his door. The final round will start in 5 minutes. Please report to the arena. One of the soldiers who were sent to notify him said so. Alex made his way to the arena. As people saw him entering, they erupted in loud cheers. Ignoring them, Alex focused on the blonde man waiting for him in the middle of the arena. He is far too handsome, he thought, looking at the man. He knew his identity as the son of a duke, but he was much too handsome for seemingly no reason at all. Moreover, he was a prodigy in magic arts and swordsmanship. There were even rumors of him having an affair with the princess in the marketplace, making him a candidate to the throne. Though, the most annoying thing about him was the heroic atmosphere around him. Ah, now I understand. This guy's the main character. As Alex thought that in his mind, Kyle gave him a smile and opened his mouth. I have seen your fights and you are a worthy opponent. Let us fight until only one of us remains standing, and then after that, if you will, I would like to have a drink with you. He said all that without taking any breaks and didn't even think that his proposal might be rejected. In response, Alex just shrugged. I'm sorry, but I don't have time for a drink, nor do I have time for chit-chat. Let's just finish this as quickly as possible. What? Hearing that, Kyle just stood there in bafflement, and at that moment, the announcer gave the signal to the start of the battle. The atmosphere around Kyle instantly changed as he took out his sword and rushed at Alex, but his steps stopped soon afterwards. Why can't I move? He thought as he looked up at his opponent, who was just standing there and not even bothering to take out his weapon. It was not like Alex had used any skill to stop Kyle in his tracks. It was just his atmosphere was too overbearing for him to move even one step. Time to finish it off, he thought, and took out his blade, which was already coated with lightning. Soon, a dragon-like creature started dancing around the tip of the blade. It was then that not only Kyle but also the whole crowd started feeling suffocated. What's going on? It feels like someone is strangling me. I feel like I'm gonna die soon. Why isn't Kyle moving? They didn't know that this was because of an after effect of using the skill Wyvern Rush. It has a chance of making people in a certain range unable to move. Not knowing this, the whole crowd thought that it was because of the pressure Alex was releasing. Kyle, who was standing close to him, knew better as he saw Alex moving towards him. Who are you? I don't have time for you. Better luck next time. Saying that, Alex activated both Bullet Time and Berserk. His power level suddenly went through the roof and created a sonic wave that was felt by everyone in the arena. Not wasting any time, he slashed at the ground. Boom! A loud explosion rang out and a large crater suddenly formed at the spot where Kyle was standing. Dust and soil flew out as shocked gasps came from the audience, who were trying to run away due to the power of the attack. The nobles watching it were extremely stunned as when the dust settled down, Kyle was lying on the ground, his eyes closed with no particular injuries, but he was unconscious just because of how shocked he was. The winner is Lycan. The announcer, who was barely able to gather words, said out loud, and this became the shortest fight in the history of the competition. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Up to 15 advanced chapters are available on Patreon if you don't want to wait for the next update. https://www.patreon.com/extra26. Comment. 20 comments. Vote. Chapter 89, Chapter 087, Assassination. Chapter 087. Now, the King of Iraskis, Edward II, will give the prize to Lycan the Wolf Warrior for winning the Royal Arena competition. The announcer shouted out in excitement. Wolf Warrior was a nickname that Alex had been given due to his wolf. As the competition progressed, the nickname just grew and grew until everyone started calling him that. Currently, he was in front of Edward II. Alex stared at him with a complicated expression as the king smiled and praised him for his accomplishments in the competition. He was a fairly young king who had climbed to the throne a few years ago. But today Alex needed to kill him. He's not real. I'm just in a time fragment, he told himself, but his complicated expression didn't go away. Even though Alex knew very well that this world wasn't real, the people he had seen were clearly living. They didn't look like illusions, and that made this harder. Way harder. I need to kill him no matter what. Alex was like this due to his no-killing rule, but today he needed to break it somehow. Otherwise, he won't be able to clear the level. I have never seen such mastery in the summoning arts before. You really surprised me, especially with your skill in the sword arts. You remind me of the magic swordsman of the past era. Edward praised, but his expression didn't change. Around him, The royal guards were keeping an eye on him, as well as some of the royalty and other prominent nobles who were standing just a short distance away. If he tried to attack Edward, he would be bombarded by multiple attacks in just 5 seconds. 5 seconds. That was enough time for him. I need to do it now. Alex thought and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was a resolute expression on his face. It was now or never. When Alex thought that, for a second, he felt like the world had stopped. No, it was just him using bullet time. Time started to tick away slowly. Very slowly. I'm sorry. I don't know if you are real or not. But you need to die. I have to kill you. Alex muttered, causing Edward II to have a confused expression. An indescribable sound came out from his mouth as he saw Alex pull out his sword out of nowhere. The highly trained royal guards noticed it, but before they could do anything, his wolf leaped out of his body and blocked their way. Hey! What the hell is happening? Someone protect the king. Lycan is an assassin. Alex could hear those voices easily in his perception of time, but his focus was only on his target. The young king that he had to kill. Why? Edward II asked, but Alex just gave him a complicated look. Stab. In an instant, his sword flowing with lightning stabbed through his heart. His eyes got bloodshot as he struggled to say anything. I'm sorry. That was the only thing Alex could say as he twisted his sword. But at that moment, something strange happened. A black energy started flowing out of Edward II's body. His eyes changed colors to pitch black and strange tattoos appeared on his neck. Alex gasped in shock as the black energy tried to push him away, but he stood there, putting more pressure on his sword. What is going on here? He thought as the black energy struggled against him for a while before giving up. Edward II's body went limp. He was dead. Alex had killed him. He had finally killed someone. You have managed to assassinate the King of Eraskis, Edward II. The whole world of Eraskis is in shock. The holder of the Devil Seed has been killed. You have achieved something no one before you has ever done. You have cleared level 10 of the Tower of Eraskis. You have cleared all of the levels and are now eligible to fight the Demon Lord Dantalion for the power of the Ether. For achieving this feat, you have been granted a time fragment as a reward. System notifications filled his vision as the young king took his last breath. Around him, the world went blank. He was not in the world of Eraskis now. But Alex didn't focus on it much. He had just killed someone and it would still take him some time to adjust back to normal. At that moment, a specific notification popped up. You have been urgently transported back to Earth because the events of Avengers have already started. As you are now a major part of the storyline, you are advised to take part in it. Ha! Seeing that notification, Alex was really surprised. The system had never talked like this before. What does it mean by saying that he was now part of the storyline? Alex didn't know, but before he could think anything, he found himself back on Earth. *****. In one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s facilities, Fury was on the phone with Coulson. Coulson, have you tracked down Alex yet? We are at level 7 threat. It's a war. I need all of them now. Fury asked with a grunting tone and Coulson replied. I'm just getting out of Stark's. And no, Alex Crown is still invisible. Our sensors can't track him and no one knows where he is. It's like he disappeared from our dimension. I don't care about that. Find that kid. It's necessary. Loki had taken control of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s scientists and one of the best agents, Clint Barton. Along with the Tesseract, Fury didn't know what he would do. At worst, they would seriously be going to war with a being from mythology. Even though it sounded crazy, it was their current reality and Fury needed every Avenger he could find. What is the last known location of Alex? His house. He disappeared a few days ago out of nowhere. We are monitoring every location he could be in. I'm pretty sure we will find. Coulson's voice suddenly cut off and Fury shouted on the phone, wondering what had happened. Coulson. Are you there? Yes sir, I'm here. One of our agents just reported that they have found Alex. Where was he? We don't know. He suddenly appeared in his room out of nowhere. There were no detectable energy signatures. Hearing that, Fury just wanted to curse. Fucking magic users. Comment. 27 comments. Vote. Chapter 90, Chapter 088 Avengers Start. Chapter 088. The Avengers events have already started. You are back on Earth to be a part of it. As a part of the storyline, your presence is needed. You can go back to the Tower of Iroskis and complete the climb after the events of Avengers. There's a chance of feeling dizzy because of swift dimensional travel. Ah, you are saying it now. Alex thought as he looked up at the middle-aged man sitting in front of him in the car. He was Phil Coulson, one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s best spies and someone who was sent to bring him to the helicarrier. As soon as he had opened his eyes, his head was hit by throbbing pain like someone had hit him with a sledgehammer. At the same time, Coulson had entered his room and requested his presence. Fortunately, Alex had already sent his parents on a trip to India a week ago, knowing very well what kind of catastrophe New York was going to face in the upcoming week. Thanks to that, they were still not privy to S.H.I.E.L.D. and his identity. Can you tell me where we are going exactly? You will know soon. Everything that we can tell you and you need to know is already in the report. Coulson said and pushed a report towards him. Holding it, Alex calmly went through it, page by page. It had information about the other Avengers like Iron Man, the Hulk and Captain America. At the same time, the report talked about Loki and how he was from a different realm. Reading it, Alex got a better knowledge of what was going on and how S.H.I.E.L.D. was countering it. You all really brought back someone from the grave. Alex said, putting the report down. His joke about Steve Rogers was only due to the fact that if he didn't even ask some questions, it would seem unnatural. We got lucky. Captain Rogers has been notified by us too. You will meet him soon. Okay. Alex nodded his head and Coulson asked. Can I ask where you were? We weren't able to track you down at all and you came out of nowhere in your room too. You were monitoring me. It was an emergency and Director Fury ordered me to bring all the candidates. There was no other choice. Alex didn't know what to say to that. He couldn't really explain about other dimensions and stuff and that he was power leveling in a place called Iroskis. He just simply replied. I can't tell you where I was. I would if I could, but there's some things I can't explain. I hope you understand. Is it related to your powers? Coulson asked, guessing in his mind, and Alex just nodded his head, not wanting to keep the conversation going. Instead, he changed the subject. What can you tell me about Loki? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In a place in India, Dr. Banner was hiding from the public eye, working as a doctor for the people of Slum. But today, his past had caught up with him again. In front of him was a young, beautiful, redhead woman who was clearly inspecting him with her eyes. By her outfit and her body language, it was easy to guess that she was a spy. You know, for a man who's supposed to be avoiding stress, you picked a hell of a place to settle. Natasha said, looking around the room. Avoiding stress isn't the secret. Then, what is it? Yoga. Bruce didn't reply and instead asked. You brought me to the edge of the city, smart. I assume the whole place is surrounded. Just you and me. Who are you? He asked, wanting to at least know the name of the spy that had intercepted him. Natasha Romanov. Are you here to kill me, Miss Romanov? Because that's not gonna work out for everyone. No. No. Of course not. I'm here on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. Natasha shook her head. S.H.I.E.L.D. How did they find me? We never lost you, Doctor. We've kept our distance, even helped keep some other interested parties off your scent. Why? Nick Fury seems to trust you. But now I need you to come in. Bruce laughed at that. He could understand why someone on such a post would want to recruit him. But he didn't want to live like that. What if I said no? I'll persuade you. And what if the other guy says no? You've been more than a year without an incident. I don't think you wanna break that streak. Natasha said, thinking back to the reports she has read on Bruce and Hulk. I don't always get what I want. Doctor, we're facing a potential global catastrophe. Well, those I actively try to avoid. Bruce said, and Natasha frowned. Taking out her phone, she showed him a photo. This is the Tesseract. It has the potential energy to wipe out the planet. What does Fury want me to do? Swallow it. Bruce took a closer look at it and asked in confusion. Well, he wants you to find it. It's been taken. It emits a gamma signature that's too weak for us to trace. There's no one that knows gamma radiation like you do. If there was, that's where I'd be. So Fury isn't after the monster. Not that he's told me. And he tells you everything. Talk to Fury, he needs you on this. He needs me in a cage. No one's gonna put you in a... She tried to say, but Bruce suddenly seemed angry. Green veins appeared on his arms as he slammed them into the table. Stop lying to me. Natasha was visibly shaken by this sudden change of behavior. She quickly took out a knife and a gun, and pointed it at Bruce. But he suddenly became normal again. I'm sorry, that was mean. I just wanted to see what you'd do. Why don't we do this the easy way, where you don't use that, and the other guy doesn't make a mess? Okay. Natasha. Although he said, she was still not convinced as she kept holding the gun against him. Finally, after a while, when she saw no angry behavior, she spoke in her earpiece. Stand down. We're good here. 24 of soldiers who had surrounded the house quickly backed off at that. Bruce smiled at Natasha and asked. Just you and me. Comment. 24 comments. Vote. Chapter 91, Chapter 089. Steve Rogers. Chapter 089. Alex got out of the car as it reached the airport. Stepping out of it, he looked around. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were all around him, and for some reason, they were glancing at him with curious but scared gazes. Like they thought of him as a freak. I'm sorry about my agents. They have all been briefed about Loki and are kind of on guard, especially since Loki was able to mind control Clint Barton. He's considered a legendary figure in our organization. I understand. I saw the files. For record, Alex was briefed about Hawkeye too, as he was one of the candidates on the Avengers Initiative program. Although not a superhuman, Clint had enough skills to stand among them. So, why are we here? Are we taking flight? Alex asked as they walked through the airport. Similar. Someone is waiting for us here too. I think you would enjoy meeting him. Coulson replied with a smile, and Alex immediately understood who they were going to meet. This must be the scene when Captain America and Coulson would get on a Quinjet. Guess, I'm a part of it too now. He thought, and couldn't help but be a little excited about the prospect of meeting Captain America. Alex was a fan of him, as most people who watched Marvel were. It was similar to when he had first met Peter. They moved to the runway, and in the distance, Alex was easily able to spot a Quinjet. Standing in front of it was a man with blonde hair and a face that looked like God had sculpted it himself. He kind of resembled Chris Evans, but not by much. The atmosphere around him was really calm, but Alex could clearly see that the man was prepared for any attack. Even if an unexpected bombing happened on the airport, he would surely survive and maybe even save others. Meeting Captain America, guess, I'm really becoming a big deal now. Alex chuckled to himself as Coulson shook hands with the blonde man. After that, the blonde man looked at him and introduced himself. Hello, I'm Steve Rogers. He put his hand out to shake Alex's. The grip of his hand was strong, and he could feel the strength of a super soldier. Alex Crown. It's an honor to meet you, Captain. Been hearing about you since my childhood. Never thought I would get to meet you. Just call me Steve. And I heard about you. More like, I saw your file. What does it say? Young, a sense of responsibility, and unexpected. Something I can work with. That's nice to hear. Alex said, and they went inside the Quinjet with Coulson. Strangely, there was no pilot, and Steve looked at Coulson with confusion. Where is the pilot? He asked. I'm the pilot. Coulson said, and for a moment, Alex felt like he was showing off due to the small smirk on his face. It was then that he realized a plot point he was forgetting. Coulson is a Captain America fanboy. Thinking that, Alex smiled to himself. Looks like the flight to the helicarrier would be nice. ******. In the underground lab, several soldiers under Loki's mind control were running around, their eyes hollow, devoid of any life, preparing to initiate whatever Loki had planned. They didn't have any control of their actions and were following Loki's orders like puppets controlled by strings. The god responsible for all this, Loki, was sitting down in a corner, watching the humans he was controlling. His gaze lingered on Eric Longer, who was working with a CMS device. "Sigh, I have been called again," he thought as he suddenly felt someone calling him. He immediately closed his eyes, meditating and focusing his energy on the scepter in his hands. The scepter glowed with a blue light, and in an instant, Loki was materialized back into the throne room of the other, fully armed in his horned helmet and armor. The other noticed his presence and appeared down the steps. "The Shi'Tori grow restless," he said, taking a hard tone, but Loki just shrugged. "Let them go by themselves. I will lead them into a glorious battle." "Battle? Against the meager might of Earth?" the other said, confused. For him, Earth was not something that needed to be fought against. Conquering it by sending the army straight to it was the right way. Glorious, not lengthy. If your force is as formidable as you claim, you question us. You question him. The other roared. He who put the scepter in your hand, who gave you ancient knowledge and new purpose when you were cast out, defeated. I was a king. The rightful king of Asgard. Betrayed. Loki didn't back down and fired back. He wasn't someone who would listen to an ugly creature treat him like this. Your ambition is little, born of childish need. We look beyond the earth to greater worlds the Tesseract will unveil. You don't have the Tesseract yet. Loki said, and his words managed to anger the other who prepared to attack him. As he rushed towards Loki, the god of mischief stopped him by pointing the scepter at him. I don't threaten, but until I open the doors, until your force is mine to command, you are but words. His words clearly infuriated the other more, but he was helpless. He was just a mere servant to his master, and his master had chosen Loki to bring back the Tesseract. Until then, he could only nod. You will have your war, Asgardian. If you fail, if the Tesseract is kept from us, there will be no realm, no barren moon, no crevice where he can't find you. You think you know pain. He will make you long for something as sweet as pain. The other threatened before placing his hand on Loki's head and transporting him back to Earth. After finding himself back on Earth, Loki looked around, cautiously. Comment. 5 comments. Vote. Chapter 92, Chapter 090 Oddity. Chapter 090. Things progressed quickly after Alex met with Steve. Along with Coulson, they flew over to the helicarrier that was situated in the Pacific Ocean. During the flight, Coulson briefed both Alex and Steve about the other members of the Avengers and how they were going to deal with Loki. All of this was stuff that Alex already knew, so he just stayed quiet, listening to their conversation. On the helicarrier, they met with Bruce Banner, someone Alex had met as Hulk before, and it seemed like Bruce also remembered him as he thanked him for his help during the Harlem incident. Aside from him, Alex also saw Natasha Romanoff, the infamous Black Widow. She seemed a bit interested in him by her words, but Alex also felt like she was on guard against him. After the helicarrier took off, they went inside it and met with Nick Fury. He welcomed everyone and talked about tracking Loki through the wireless spread across the globe. Hearing that, Bruce had proposed to make a tracking software, and it had finally helped S.H.I.E.L.D. find the location of Loki. Currently, they were on a Quinjet, flying on top of international borders to go to Germany, the place Loki was discovered at. Stuttgart, Germany. I wonder what he's doing here, Natasha said, taking another look at the coordinates. They were halfway there, but the atmosphere inside the Quinjet was awkward. Mainly because none of them felt like talking much. Maybe trying to take over the world or start a war. Stuff like that usually starts there according to history. He does think of himself as the ruler from his reports, Alex said, and Steve gave him a sheepish smile. He hadn't been to Germany since the war, and it still felt like a distant dream to him. We can't say for sure. All we can try to do is stop him with as few casualties as possible. Normally, there would be a briefing before any mission, but we don't have the time right now, Steve said, looking up at him. Any orders for me? I have seen videos of what you can do. So, just try to stop him if he tries to get away. Alex nodded, and then, after thinking for a bit, changed into his costume with a mental command. S.H.I.E.L.D. had offered to make a costume for him, but he had rejected it as he was more comfortable in his outfit. Moreover, he could wear it with just a mental command. Wow! What was that? Steve was surprised when Alex suddenly changed into his outfit. Turning towards Natasha, he asked, "Is this some kind of technology?" "No, from what we know, only he can do it." Natasha said, then looked at him. Director Fury wanted to have a talk with you regarding your powers after all this is over. We will see about that. Alex said, shrugging. Even if he wanted to tell, he didn't know how to explain his powers. Fury would be shocked if he knew what new tricks I have obtained. He thought, thinking back to his new powers that he had gotten. With them, Alex was sure that he was stronger than most of the heroes in this universe. At that moment, the agent who was piloting the Quinjet suddenly said, "We are close to our destination. Get ready." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In Germany, Loki was walking in front of a crowd of people. Slowly, the aura around him changed and he was clothed in his armor and his scepter appeared in his hand. The people before him had horrified eyes, some of them were shaking and an old man looked like he would have a heart attack at any second. Loki enjoyed the fear in their eyes. For him, humans were like cockroaches except useful. The only similarity was that he could crush them both at any time. Smiling, he slammed his scepter on the ground and shouted, "Kneel before me." The people didn't move and his voice got stronger. "I said kneel. Isn't this simpler?" The people kneeled at the same time, not wanting to infuriate him further. Loki enjoyed this sight a lot. "Is this not your natural state?" he began, taking a stride in between his kneeling slaves. "It's the unspoken truth of humanity, that you crave subjugation. The bright lure of freedom diminishes your life's joy in a mad scramble for power, for identity. You were made to be ruled. In the end, you will always kneel." Hearing that, an old man suddenly stood up and said, "Not to men like you." Loki smirked and looked towards the old man. "There are no men like me. There are always men like you." That sentence caused Loki to laugh out loud. He pointed his scepter at the old man and said out loud, "Look to your elder, people. Let him be an example." Saying that, he blasted a bolt of force towards the old man, but at that moment, a figure with a shield in his hands landed in front of the old man out of nowhere. The blue bolt of force turned back after hitting the shield and hit Loki instead. A shocked expression appeared on the old man's face seeing the man in front of him as well as the other people. He was Captain America, the first super soldier the world had ever seen. Steve slowly walked towards Loki with his shield in his hands. "You know, the last time I was in Germany, and saw a man standing above everybody else, we ended up disagreeing," he said as Loki tried to stand up. "The soldier. The man out of time," Loki said, glaring at him. "I'm not the one who's out of time," Steve replied. "And I'm not alone." As he said that, the Quinjet flying above them suddenly issued a warning. "Loki, drop the weapon and stand down." "Yeah, that's better for you." Suddenly, Alex jumped out from the Quinjet and landed some steps away from Steve. His sword was in his hands and Loki cursed under his breath seeing him. The oddity. The what? Alex made a confused expression hearing that. Comment. 4 comments. Vote. Chapter 93, Chapter 091 Fight with Loki. Chapter 091. For a moment, Alex just stood there, his face confused. Loki had called him an oddity. What does that mean? He knew about Steve being a man out of time, then did calling him an oddity also meant something? These thoughts flashed through his mind for a second, but his expression soon hardened. It wasn't the time to think about this. They were in the middle of the fight, and from the clues he had gotten from fighting previous villains till now, they were more powerful in this universe. It also made sense as villains were seriously done dirty in the MCU, but Alex didn't like the situation. In the original, Loki had been easily defeated by Steve and then Tony, who was probably on his way. But Alex didn't know if the same would happen this time. I can do the thinking later, he thought as Loki directed a blue bolt at him. He easily dodged it by rolling down to the side, and Steve attacked Loki with his shield. Loki blocked the attack with the help of his scepter and fought back. For a moment, they both confronted each other, but suddenly, a force came out of the scepter and blasted Steve into the nearest wall. "Steve!" Alex yelled out and rushed at Loki. His sword slashed through the air, creating ripples as Loki barely blocked it with his scepter. "You are stronger than I thought," Loki grunted, swinging the scepter like a baseball bat, and Alex crouched down. Then, he kicked the god of mischief in the groin, pushing him several steps back. Not wanting to give up so easily, Loki used his scepter to blast bolts of energy at Alex one after another. Alex immediately activated his bullet time and easily ran in between the bolts. His sword sparked with electricity as he struck Loki's chest. It was not an effective attack as Loki's armor absorbed most of the force, but it was enough to make Loki fall to the ground. While groaning, he tried to get up, but Steve's shield hit him in the helmet at that time and he was knocked back again. Seeing all this, Alex thought, he really isn't trying. Loki was a god who was more than 1,000 years old, and he was even a frost giant, meaning that he was far more durable. But currently, he was all over the place, trying to fight both Alex and Steve. His plan is to get captured. Alex frowned thinking about it and sent a lightning strike towards Loki. He didn't try to dodge it and simply intercepted it with a blue bolt of force. "I hate thunder," he said, glaring at Alex. At that moment, Alex suddenly sensed something. His senses had improved a lot since going through the Tower of Iroskis, so he was easily able to notice that something was coming through the air. "He's here now, I guess." Thinking that, Alex turned around. Suddenly, Natasha, who was sitting in the Quinjet, saw someone taking over the control of the jet. A song, "Shoot to Thrill," started playing as a familiar voice sounded out. "Agent Romanov. You miss me." Natasha sighed hearing that voice, and Steve looked up in the air, seeing an armored figure landing on the ground. Alex also kept staring at him, and Loki tried to attack as soon as he saw Tony. But a repulsor ray was enough to make fall back on the ground. "Make your move, Reindeer Games," Tony said, landing in front of Loki and pushing his repulsor towards his face. Loki frowned seeing that and glancing at Alex and Steve standing behind Tony, he promptly removed his armor. "Good move," Steve said, walking towards Tony. "Captain," Tony said in greeting, then turned towards Alex. "Kid. Wanted to see you for a while." After that, they all turned towards Loki, who let out a muffled groan and frowned. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. After capturing Loki, they got back on the Quinjet, and started to head back to the helicarrier. His scepter was confiscated and Alex made sure it was kept far away from him. Tony and Steve finally had a time to talk, and like Alex had thought, they really were like ice and fire. "Is he saying anything?" "Not a word," Tony asked. "Just get him here. We're low on time." "I don't like it," Steve replied, slightly on guard. "What, Rock of Ages giving up so easily?" Tony said, gesturing towards Loki, who was looking up to them. "I don't remember it being that easy." As Steve and Tony were bickering, Alex walked towards Loki and squatted down, staring into his eyes. "You called me an oddity. What does it mean?" Alex asked. This question was really bothering him and only Loki had the answer. Why should I tell you? It's better if you do. I pack a mean punch. I'm used to them. Loki said, smirking. It wasn't a sight Alex liked. He wanted answers and Loki was clearly playing hard to get. He needed to find another way to get answers. At that moment, Tony suddenly looked up at him and asked. What are you doing? Just trying to get some answers out of him. Don't stay too close to him. He can mind control people from what we know. Steve said, thinking back to the files on Clint Barton and Eric Selvig. Alex was just about to reply when lightning suddenly cracked in the sky. It was the start of a scene that Alex very well remembered. Oh no! He muttered and Tony smirked at him. Lightning Boy is scared of thunder. It's not that. Loki has a brother who is associated with. Before he could finish his words, lightning crackled again. This time, it was much more powerful. You won't like what comes after lightning. Loki said, preparing for the inevitable arrival of his most hated enemy and brother. It was then that something landed on the roof of the Quinjet. Comment. 5 comments. Vote. Chapter 94, Chapter 092 Arrival of Thor. Chapter 092. The Quinjet shook as a figure landed on top of it. Steve and Tony gave each other glances as Natasha and the pilot tried hard to control the jet. Alex could see Loki smirking, but at the same time, a hint of annoyance was on his face too. Suddenly, Tony stepped forward and picked up his helmet. Putting it on, he opened up the rear hatch door. What are you doing? Steve asked, but at that moment, a figure landed on the hatch door. Alex's eyes widened as he looked at him. It was Thor, the god of thunder. Although he was expecting him, seeing him up close really was something else. He looked a lot like Chris Hemsworth but had a godlike aura around him. Currently, he looked angry. He stepped inside the Quinjet and Tony immediately tried to intercept him, but Thor simply pushed him away, using his magical hammer, Mjolnir. After that, he picked up Loki from his collar and jumped out of the Quinjet. Tony stood up after Thor jumped down. Although Alex wasn't able to tell his expression, he guessed that it wasn't something good. And now there's that guy. Tony muttered. Another Asgardian. That guy's friendly. Steve asked and Alex chipped in. I think so. Doesn't matter. If he frees Loki or kills him, the Tesseract's lost. Tony said, walking towards the hatch door, and Steve quickly tried to intercept him. Stark, we need a plan of attack. I have a plan. Attack. Tony said, turning around before jumping off the Quinjet. Grabbing the chance, Alex ran after Tony. I will go after him. Steve and Natasha didn't try to stop Alex as they knew that the situation was too rushed to think of a plan. Turning towards Steve, Natasha said. I'd sit this one out, Cap. I don't see how I can. Steve replied. These guys come from legend. They're basically gods. She said as Steve picked up a parachute and walked towards the open hatch. There's only one god, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that. After saying that, he jumped. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It all happened like the original movie after that. Thor and Loki confronted each other before Iron Man appeared, and then, a fight started between the two of them. In the end, Steve tried to stop the fight but it didn't work. After Thor slammed his hammer into Steve's shield, a large force explosion happened, stopping the fight. The only difference was that this time, Loki tried running away when they were fighting. This hasn't happened in the movie, but Alex didn't think too much about it. Changes were inevitable no matter what he did. Fortunately, he and his wolf were there to not let Loki run away and capture him. This time, Loki tried to use more of his strength, but Alex ended the battle early by using bullet time and lightning strike. Currently, they were sitting on the helicarrier as Loki was moved to his cell. Tony had gone somewhere and only Bruce, Thor, Steve and Natasha were there alongside Alex. So, was it hard? Bruce asked, looking at the screen. A display of Loki getting transported to his cell was on it. Not really. It almost seemed like he wasn't trying. Alex answered, trying to get the Avengers to be on guard. That's true. Natasha agreed with him. It was really weird considering how many people he killed in the last 2 days. Think he has a plan? Steve said, looking towards Alex. Although he was the youngest among them, the super soldier could tell that he had a steady head on his shoulders. Doesn't seem like the type of guy to not have a plan. I think we should ask Thor about it. Alex said, looking at Thor and seeing everyone looking at him. The Asgardian god sighed before explaining. Loki has an army. They are called the Sheetori. He began to explain and everything went exactly the same as how it went during the movie. Thor explained about the Sheetori and everyone saw Fury interrogating Loki. Then, Thor entered and talked about Iridium, a stabilizing agent Clint has stolen on Loki's orders. Alex smirked when he saw Tony plant a chip on one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s computers but didn't say anything about it. He kept silent and only Steve bothered to talk to him. Maybe due to the fact that he was feeling left out of the conversation, he talked about his powers and asked Alex about his, and how he got into the superhero business. So, you just got these powers one day? Back in my day, it was more painful. Steve said and Alex chuckled. Yeah, well, I went through my own troubles when I was starting. As they were talking, Tony suddenly looked towards them and chipped in. Hey, fanboy. What? Alex looked at him with a confused face. He knew Tony had a habit of giving nicknames but he never thought he would be called fanboy. You helped out a bit in the Stark Expo. Didn't you do it 'cause you are my fan? No need to be shy. Not that much to be called a fanboy. Tony chuckled at that and moved towards him. Extending a hand, he said. I don't think we formally introduced ourselves yet. I'm a big fan of your wolf. Can I buy it? It's not for sale. That's too bad. Anyway, I was trying to contact you for months. Didn't get my mail. Alex shook his head and Tony just acted like he was heartbroken before chuckling and offering him something. Anyway, how about you come to Stark Tower after all this is over? I can get a drink and we'll get you some milk. Is it an offer? Why? I'm not really a genius like Dr. Banner. Alex asked, wondering what Tony was after. He had seen him offer Bruce a chance to work with him in the Stark Tower. But why him? I'm interested in your powers. They really don't care about science. I have never seen such things before and I'm the type to be fascinated by them. I will think about it. Alex replied simply, trying not to give a definite answer. Comment. 6 comments. Vote. Chapter 95, Chapter 093 Secret. Chapter 093. Tony's request to let him do research on his powers was not something expected. But when Alex thought more about it, the motive behind the request made sense. After all, as the events in the Marvel Universe progressed, Tony became more and more obsessed with protecting Earth, and the feeling that something was going to destroy Earth was always in his mind. Originally, all this would begin after the events in the first Avengers movie. But thanks to this universe having more villains, maybe Tony becoming more anxious had started early. It's not a bad thing. But I feel bad for him. Alex thought, thinking of the nightmares Tony would have to deal with throughout his life. For now, he decided to focus more on the Avengers plot. The original plot was not something he wanted to change too much because it paved the path for future MCU events, and Tony's whole development started from here. Moreover, the movie was necessary for the world to know of the threats that they have never even thought of. There were only two things he wanted to change. One thing he wanted to change was Coulson's death, but it was necessary to make the Avengers fight together, and in the end, Coulson was resurrected in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And the second was Hulk going berserk and destroying parts of the helicarrier. Of course, it was just Loki's ploy, but Alex felt like it was a necessary development. Alex wanted to get Bruce to accept the Hulk part of himself early in this universe. Although him destroying the helicarrier was a big deal in the first movie, what Hulk did in the second one was way bigger. He had killed a lot of civilians, making the public direct their wrath towards the Avengers. He wanted to stop that. After all, Alex had read the comics in his previous life, and in it, the best way for Bruce to go ahead was to accept the Hulk part of him. Unfortunately, this had happened a lot later in the MCU. That's why, when he noticed Bruce was free and was just getting some data out of the scepter, he knew it was the only chance. Tony was out on a call with Pepper, and Steve had gone to investigate after Tony had revealed that he was hacking into S.H.I.E.L.D. and how the whole thing about S.H.I.E.L.D. wanting Tesseract as a clear energy sounded funny. Natasha was out, probably to get information about Clint from Loki, and he hadn't even noticed when she had left. Typical spy stuff. So, finally alone, he walked up to him and opened his mouth. "Dr. Banner, can I talk to you?" Yes. We haven't gotten time to talk much. Again, thanks for what happened in Harlem." He replied with a kind smile, but behind it, he was asking what purpose Alex had to talk to him. "It's fine. I just wanted to ask you about Hulk." He cut him off and asked. Alex nodded his head, wondering how he should bring it up. "What interests you about him? Are you also trying to research the big, green guy like Tony?" he asked. "You don't look like the nerdy type. My intentions are completely different. I think I might have a way for Hulk and you to work better." His expression changed when Alex mentioned that. For a moment, he winced, but soon looked at Alex like he was joking. "A way to heal me? If there was a way, you would have already found it out." Then Alex sighed, scratching the back of his head. A habit of his. He would often do it when he didn't know how to explain something. Especially in a way which won't bring out Hulk. "I think you should find an equilibrium with Hulk." Bruce chuckled at his suggestion. "What? Should I invite him to a tea party and try to talk things out with him? Let's be best buddies and stuff like that?" "No, but you do know Hulk had a brain of his own." Alex shook his head. "It may not be like yours, but he can understand if you try. He might really listen. I don't think fighting with him or trying to find a cure is a solution." "Why do you think that will work anyway?" "There's no way Hulk will listen to me. He's always angry." "So are you." Bruce was surprised at that. Everyone had been asking about his secret to remain calm, but Alex had found out about it. Until now, he had just thought of him as a kid. A special one. But a kid nonetheless. But his calm nature and way of talking was definitely not like one. How do you know? Bruce asked. I'm good at finding secrets. Anyway, Dr. Banner, try to give my idea a little thought. Although not similar, I can relate to you thanks to my wolf. The last line was a lie but not wholly. After getting his wolf, Alex had learned that it wasn't a species which could be tamed easily. But because his wolf was from the system, it was subservient from the start. We can talk about it later, Doc. Alex said as he saw Tony returning from outside. He quickly went to a corner and sat down as Bruce and Tony started discussing stuff that he was barely able to understand. It was not like he didn't understand science, but the stuff they were discussing was too high level for him. Maybe I should get a tour of the helicarrier too. He thought and pondered. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. After that, things were pretty normal for a long time. Bruce and Tony were talking about the various possibilities the scepter possessed and how fascinating the data it was giving. Alex wondered what they would think if they knew it was one of the most powerful things in the universe. Some time later, Fury returned when Tony and Bruce had mostly finished their work. It's finally picking up pace. Comment. 3 comments. Vote. Chapter 96, Chapter 094 Intervention. Chapter 094. What are you doing, Mr. Stark? Fury stormed into the room as Alex thought that the real plot of the movie would start soon. Fury looked angry as he asked that. Kind of been wondering the same thing about you. Tony said, looking at him, then glanced at Alex, who shrugged in response. You're supposed to be locating the Tesseract. Asterisk we are. Bruce replied. The model's locked and we're sweeping for the signature now. When we get a hit, we'll have the location within half a mile. Yeah, then you get your cube back. No muss, no fuss. Tony said, and then taking the chance, he brought up a hologram on the screen and asked. What is Phase 2? At that moment, Steve walked right into the room, looking visibly disappointed and angry. He put down a device which resembled some kind of a prototype. Phase 2 is S.H.I.E.L.D. using the cube to make weapons. He said, taking a look around the room. Sorry, the computer was moving a little slow for me. Rogers, we gathered everything related to the Tesseract. This does not mean that we're making. Fury tried to explain, but at that moment, Tony quickly pulled out a screen which displayed the blueprint of a weapon S.H.I.E.L.D. was trying to develop using the Tesseract. I'm sorry, Nick. What were you saying? Tony snickered. I was wrong, Director. The world hasn't changed a bit. Did you know about this? Steve and Bruce spoke. Alex, who was just standing in the background, wasn't speaking anything, but he was on guard because he knew what would come after this scene. The door to the room opened at that moment and Natasha and Thor walked in. Immediately, the redhead spy looked towards Bruce. You thinking about removing yourself from this environment, Doctor? I was in Calcutta. I was pretty well removed. Loki is manipulating you, she said, frowning. And you've been doing what, exactly? You didn't come here because I batted my eyelashes at you. Yes, and I'm not leaving because suddenly you get a little twitchy. I'd like to know why S.H.I.E.L.D. is using the Tesseract to build weapons of mass destruction. Bruce asked, pointing towards the screen. It was the question that was on everyone's mind, and this time, Fury replied, his eyes pointing at Thor. Because of him. Me. Last year, Earth had a visitor from another planet who had a grudge match that leveled a small town. Fury began, looking at everyone. We learned that not only are we not alone but we are hopelessly, hilariously, outgunned. Then his eyes suddenly moved towards Alex. Not only that, we now have people who have powers that we don't know the end of. Crown, will you tell everyone about how you got your powers or how many more are roaming around with a giant wolf in their shadows? I'm not a threat, Fury. Alex replied back, trying to not let emotions show on his face. My people want nothing but peace with your planet. Thor said, shaking his head. But you're not the only people out there, are you? And you're not the only threat. Fury said. The world's filling up with people who can't be matched, that can't be controlled. The last part of the sentence was clearly aimed at Alex, but he just gave back an icy glare. Like you controlled the cube. Your work with the Tesseract is what drew Loki to it, and his allies. It is a signal to all the realms that the Earth is ready for a higher form of war. Thor said, stepping towards Fury, who wasn't going to back down. A higher form. You forced our hand. We had to come up with something. Tony chipped in at that moment. A nuclear deterrent. Because that always calms everything right down. Remind me again how you made your fortune, Stark. Fury fired back, hitting a nerve. I'm sure if he still made weapons, Stark would be neck deep. Steve began, but Tony quickly interjected. Hold on. How is this now about me? I'm sorry, isn't everything? I thought humans were more evolved than this. Thor grumbled and the fight just intensified. Alex cited, thinking that in the beginning, the Avengers really were a mismatched group. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. As the Avengers were arguing, a Quinjet was covertly moving towards the helicarrier. Transport 66 Bravo, please relay confirm codes. I've got you on the computer, but not on the day log. What is your haul? A voice came from the speaker, asking for the identity of the Quinjet, but the pilot simply replied. Over. Arms and ammunition. Over. If one looked closely, the pilot's eyes looked hollow and he seemed to be piloting the jet like a robot, only following instructions blindly. There were a lot of agents filled throughout the Quinjet and all of them have the same eyes as the pilot. They seemed to be preparing for an attack and leading them was Clint Barton. Yes, they were the agents controlled by Loki. This one would be good. Clint thought as he prepared his bow and took a glance at the arrow. It was one of his special ones. Aside from the common ones, Clint had a variety of special arrows that he would only use on special occasions. This one was an explosion arrow. Moving towards the hatch, he looked down at the helicarrier in the distance. The pilot was following his order, so they were quite close to the engines. Clint kept his eyes glued to the engines and pulled back his bow, taking aim. Finding the perfect moment, he fired the shot and the arrow moved through the air and stuck to one of the engines. Beep. 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 A beeping sound appeared from it and suddenly, the arrow exploded. In an instant, parts of the helicarrier engine fell down as the huge ship struggled to keep its balance. Clint smirked seeing that. His plan was just beginning. Comment. 2 comments. Vote. Chapter 97, Chapter 095 Attack on Helicarrier. Chapter 095. In the room on the helicarrier, the fight between the Avengers and Fury was just getting more and more intense. Currently, Bruce was so infuriated that Alex felt like he would turn into Hulk any second. His strength is rising even if there's no visible proof. he thought, his eyes locked onto Bruce. After passing through the Tower of Iroquois, his perception had increased a lot and he was able to feel details he had never imagined before. At the same time, he could feel the scepter reacting to something. "Agent Romanov, would you escort Dr. Banner back to his?" Fury said, glancing at Natasha. On the side, Tony and Steve were in a confrontation and it really seemed like they were going to get into a fight. "Where? You rented my room." Bruce fired back, hinting back at the cell that Loki was kept in. It was originally a cell that was made to contain Bruce if he went out of control. The cell was just in case. In case you needed to kill me. But you can't. Bruce frowned. "I know, I tried. I got low. I didn't see an end. So, I put a bullet in my mouth, and the other guy spit it out. So I moved on. I focused on helping other people. I was good. Until you dragged me back into this freak show and put everyone here at risk." He ranted and then, suddenly looked at Natasha. The redhead spy didn't move but Alex could feel that she was getting into position. She was prepared to take cover if Bruce tried to attack. "You want to know my secret, Agent Romanov? You want to know how I stay calm?" Bruce asked and Fury prepared to take out his gun from the holster. At that moment, Alex's eyes went towards the scepter that Bruce had suddenly picked up during his rant. "Dr. Banner, the scepter. Put it down please," Alex said, trying to keep his tone calm. Bruce looked at him and Alex felt danger. But suddenly, a beep rang out on the computer and Bruce's attention went there. "Got it?" Fury muttered as Bruce sprinted towards the computer screen. "Sorry, kids, you don't get to see my party trick after all. You located the Tesseract?" Thor asked and Tony quickly said. "I could get there the fastest. The Tesseract belongs on Asgard. No human is a match for it." Thor replied but his words were mostly ignored. "You're not going alone," Steve said, facing Tony. "You're gonna stop me." "Put on the suit, let's find out," Steve said with strength in his voice. "I'm not afraid to hit an old man." "Put on the suit." As this was going on between the two of them, Alex's heart suddenly started beating faster. He looked at the computer screen rather than at the fighting Avengers. "Guys, I think something is going to happen." He tried to warn but there was not enough time. On the computer, Bruce saw the location of the Tesseract and for a second, he stopped breathing. Boom! At that moment, an explosion suddenly rang out. Bullet time! Alex immediately activated bullet time and jumped towards Bruce. According to the plot, Bruce would be thrown out of the room and would fall into the weapons cache room with Natasha. The explosion was what prompted Bruce to turn into Hulk and this time, Alex won't let it happen. As the perception of time around him slowed down, he was easily able to reach Bruce and shield him from the impact. He quickly stopped his skill in the middle and everything returned back to normal. The impact of the explosion finally followed after that as Alex felt himself falling through the air with pieces of metals and wood along with shield equipment. Natasha was also besides him and despite her not having enhanced physical skills, she survived the fall but she looked to be in pain. "Looks like Bruce is okay," Alex thought as he looked at Bruce who was unconscious from the impact but was still breathing. For a moment, he saw green veins appearing on his neck and got momentarily scared but it was just for a second. After that, there were no apparent changes in his body and Alex could take a sigh of relief. He had used his wolf to cushion up the fall, so everything had gone well. Now, at least, Hulk won't get unleashed during the attack on Helicarrier. Hey, I need help. As he was sighing in relief, Natasha suddenly said. Looking at her, he saw that a heavy piece of equipment was on her legs and she wasn't able to move. Yeah. He put Bruce to the side and quickly went to help Natasha. The equipment was heavy, but it was not too much for him. He was easily able to get Natasha out. That was quite a surprise. Is Bruce okay? She asked, looking up at Bruce, who was lying down on the ground. He's just unconscious. Can you take him somewhere better? I think the agents that Loki manipulated are attacking the helicarrier to get him out. Natasha nodded at those words, but her expression soon turned grim. She silently muttered the name of a person who was really close to him. Clint. He's probably leading them. Alex said. I will try to take them out. Going by how they blew up an engine, they will probably target the others. Leave Clint to me. I can handle him. Natasha suddenly said, and after thinking for a bit, Alex nodded his head. He knew how close both of them were, and the same had happened in the movie too. I will take out the other agents. After saying that, Alex quickly ran off. Originally, there were not many agents that Loki had manipulated, but in this universe, more than 70 agents were taken by Loki. He was sure that he was in for a big fight. Comment. 3 comments. Vote. Chapter 98, Chapter 096 Death. Chapter 096. Clint's probably going to try to get Loki out of his cell, but the other agents will try their best to damage the engines and make the helicarrier fall to the ground. Alex thought of the Avengers storyline as he moved forward to the bridge area of the helicarrier. He wore the earpiece that Fury had given him before and spoke into it while running. Hello, this is Alex. Code name. Kid, are you okay? As he was speaking, Tony's voice suddenly came out. He quickly replied. Mr. Stark, I'm fine. One of the engines was knocked out. We need to fix it, and Agent Barton is leading a lot of rogue agents. Another voice came out as he spoke. It was Steve. Tony and I are heading towards the engine room. Can you handle the attackers? Yeah, sure. After saying that, Alex turned around a corner and suddenly came face to face with 6 men who were all armed. They looked at him for a moment, uneasiness in their eyes. But it was only for a moment. Alex wondered if they were part of the rogue group. It was hard to tell them apart after all because of the shield equipment, but he soon got his answer. They snapped their guns towards him and aimed. Immediately, his wolf leaped out from his body and attacked the 2 men who were at the front. The others looked horrified to see his wolf, something that Alex was used to. One of the men fired at Alex and he easily dodged the bullet and tackled the man, punching him straight in the ribs. A cracking sound came out as the man lost his senses. How do you even see with those eyes? He joked half-heartedly at the 3 guys who were staring at him. They quickly raised their guns to fire, but Alex was quicker. He leaped forward and kicked one of the men in a lightning-fast move. The man flew back and slammed into the door behind him. His eyes rolled up and closed as he passed out. Without stopping, he punched the 2nd man in his face and his wolf dived into the 3rd, finishing him off. That was easy. Alex thought, and at that moment, Fury's voice came out from the earpiece. Alex. Where are you? We need some help here at the bridge. Coming. He replied and ran towards the bridge area. The fight was just starting. ******. On the bridge, Fury and Maria Hill were in an intense battle with the rogue group of agents. Scientists around them were furiously trying to take back control of their systems while hiding behind cover to avoid the rain of bullets being unleashed by the rogue agents. Just a few minutes ago, Clint had hacked the system, adding to their ongoing troubles. "Director Fury, we won't be able to hold on for long," Maria Hill said, firing a bullet towards an agent which hit his arm, then crouching. "Help should be near." "Okay," Maria said, and a painful groan suddenly came out next to her. She turned her head to see one of the scientists falling to the floor after getting shot. He was a new recruit. She thought in her mind and reloaded her gun. If help didn't come fast, the rogue agents would storm in and then, they won't be able to do anything. As she fired another round of bullets, a shout again came out. She expected it to be another scientist, but to her surprise, the shout had come from outside. From the area that the rogue agents were occupying to take cover and firing through small gaps and openings. "What's going on?" As she thought that, more screams rang out, each one more painful and horrified than the last. The roar of some kind of animal also came out, scaring many people on the bridge. But Fury just silently muttered with a smile. "He's here. Asterisk asterisk asterisk." That took a long time. Alex muttered as the final rogue agent crashed into a wall. In front of him, many agents were lying unconscious. Although there were a lot of them, all of them were just trained individuals with no superpowers. It was easy to handle them with his wolf. "Now that it's done, I think it will be fine." Thinking that, he stepped inside the bridge. He could see Maria Hill and Fury breathing a sigh of relief seeing him. The scientists on the bride cheered and hugged each other while some mourned for their colleagues who had died. "Alex, head towards the cell. Natasha is intercepting Barton, but Loki might have other plans," Fury said as he looked at him. "We've got a lot to handle here." "Okay." Alex nodded and quickly headed towards the cell. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. As all of this was going on, Thor, who was aware of Loki's tactics, was already running towards the detention area. A bad feeling that Loki was going to use this chance to get out of the cell was spreading through his body. And when he reached the cell, that thought changed into reality. He saw Loki walking out of the cell and he quickly shouted, "No!" He shouted and leaped at Loki, but he just passed through him and landed right in the cell. The door closed at that moment as Thor looked in bafflement. "Will you ever not fall for that?" Loki appeared outside the cell and smirked. Thor grunted, cursing inwardly as his eyes stayed fixed on his brother. "The humans think we are immortal. Should we test that?" he said, coming in front of the control system. "Just one button and the cell will fall right out from the ship." But just as he was about to start his prank, a shout distracted him. "Move away, please." Coulson suddenly appeared through the door. Loki looked at the big gun in his hand and Coulson smiled. "You like this? We started working on the prototype after you sent the destroyer. I don't even know what it does. Do you want to find out?" Coulson asked as he prepared to shoot at Loki, but just then, a sharp knife appeared out of nowhere and dug into his chest. He dropped the gun as Thor yelled, "No!" Comment. 4 comments. Vote. Chapter 99, Chapter 097 Friends. Chapter 097. No. Thor screamed and punched the glass wall of the cell he was trapped in by Loki. The wall cracked but didn't break completely. The god of lightning watched in pain and horror as Coulson plummeted to the ground with the knife in his chest. He clutched his chest and removed the knife. A painful groan escaped his lips as pain filled his body, a numbing yet stinging sensation passing through his chest. Coulson was alive, but he didn't know for how long. Loki didn't look at him and instead smirked at Thor. He walked back to the controls and after a final stare, pushed the button that opened up the hatch at the bottom of the cell. One more button and Thor would potentially fall to his death. "Loki, let me out now," Thor roared. His brother had made him angry a lot on many occasions, but this was one of the worst. But Loki wasn't scared by his attitude. "Enjoy the ride, brother," he simply said, and with another look, he pressed the button, making the prison cell fall straight out of the helicarrier. After he was done with Thor, Loki was about to leave the helicarrier, but at that moment, Coulson suddenly spoke. "You're going to lose." His words intrigued Loki as he asked, "Am I?" "It's in your nature," Coulson said, and his sentence made Loki chuckle out loud. He walked towards him, looking down on his body which was slowly dying. "Your heroes are scattered. Your floating fortress falls from the sky. Where is my disadvantage?" Loki slowly said. "You lack conviction," Coulson replied. "I don't think I'm." As Loki was speaking, Coulson suddenly fired the gun that was made after the destroyer attack on New Mexico. It was something made out of Asgardian technology and it didn't disappoint him. Loki was slammed to the wall, breaking it in the process due to the attack. "So, that's what it does," Coulson silently muttered to himself, happy that he was able to deal a blow to Loki. At that moment, Alex, who had come here searching for Loki, entered the room and saw Coulson on the ground. "I'm late," he thought in his mind. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. "Are you okay? Let's get to the medic." Alex squatted down next to Coulson and tried to pick him up, but he wasn't responding. His face had already gone pale and blood had reached his mouth. His shirt was drenched in blood, and because of his street vigilante lifestyle, Alex knew that this much blood wasn't something easily seen. It only meant one thing. Coulson was dying. Alex knew it, and even Coulson himself was aware. "Coulson, get up," Fury, who had entered the cell area right after Alex, said. His best agent was down like this and he couldn't afford to lose him. "Sorry, boss," Coulson weakly said, glancing up at Fury. "The god rabbit." "Just stay awake," Fury replied. "Eyes on me." "No, I'm clocking out here." "Not an option." Alex frowned as the conversation reached this point. He knew what was going to happen next and he had decided to let it happen too. But at this moment, he was having second thoughts. There must be another way out of this, he thought in his mind as Coulson suddenly coughed out blood. He didn't have much time left and Alex had to think quickly. "I can save him with a high-level potion. But that would make S.H.I.E.L.D. aware of them." Alex pondered in his mind as time ticked away. His conscience hurt because he didn't want a man to die when he could save him, but it was necessary development for the story. In the end, he frowned and came to a decision. "Fury." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. These were in Phil Coulson's jacket, Fury said, throwing some blooded cards towards Steve. They were vintage Captain America playing cards. Maria, who was standing in the distance, frowned upon seeing those. Alex recognized them from his childhood and sighed. Tony next to him had a hard look on his face and Thor was nowhere to be found. Bruce was still unconscious and Natasha was tending to Clint, who she had been able to knock out of Loki's control. "I guess he never did get you to sign them," Fury said. We're dead in the air up here. Our communications, the location of the cube, Loki, Thor. I got nothing for you. Tony frowned at that. I lost my one good eye. He began to walk around the table as their eyes followed him. Steve picked up one of the cards and examined it. Yes, we were going to build an arsenal with the Tesseract. I never put all my chips on that number, though, because I was playing something even riskier. Fury said before giving out an indescribable expression. There was an idea, Stark knows this, Alex knows this, called the Avengers Initiative. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people to see if they could become something more. He let out a sigh. To see if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could. Phil Coulson died still believing in that idea. In Heroes. Heroes, it was an old-fashioned concept, but like Coulson had told Steve before, in this age with crazy things to come, maybe a little old-fashioned was what people needed. But Tony still had an uncomfortable expression on his face. Sighing, he stood up and walked out of the room. I hope I made the right choice. Alex thought as he blinked his eyes. Various thoughts ran through his mind, but he knew this was the start of an end. He needed to prepare for it, so that New York could be saved. Thinking of that, he stood up. Looking up at Steve, he said, "Go after Tony. I need to make some phone calls." To whom? Steve asked, and Alex just replied with a thin smile. Friends. Comment. 6 comments. Vote. Chapter 100, Chapter 098, Finding Out the Plan. Chapter 098. Alex left somewhere after saying that he needed to call some friends. Steve was confused and asked who he was calling, but he left before answering. Unable to do anything, Steve went to find Tony. He didn't have to look much, as there was only one place Tony would be at. Steve knew it, as he had lost a lot of people in his old days. He was experienced in it. And he did find Tony at the place where Coulson had taken his last breath. The medical team had already taken away Coulson's body, but there was still a large blood stain on the wall, and Tony kept staring at it. His thoughts were jumbled among each other, and even when he noticed that Steve was looking at him, he didn't speak. In the end, it was Steve who opened his mouth. Was he married? He asked. No. Tony replied in a sad tone. He was trying to hide his emotions, but Coulson's death had shook him hard. There was a cellist, I think. I'm sorry. He seemed like a good man. Steve said, looking down. Tony let out a frown and walked towards him. He was an idiot. Why? For believing. For taking on Loki alone. Tony said, thinking in his head that Coulson had died in a meaningless way. He could have easily survived if not for playing the hero. He was doing his job. Steve replied, shaking his head to dismiss Tony's words. He was out of his league. He should have waited. He should have. Tony wasn't able to finish his sentence before he sighed. Sometimes there isn't a way out, Tony. Steve tried to put his hand on Tony's shoulders. But he moved away. Right, I've heard that before. Is this the first time you lost a soldier? Steve asked, but his words just angered Tony. He turned back and glared at the man his father had talked hours about. We are not soldiers. The tone in his voice rose before dying out. Looking at Steve, he muttered, I'm not marching to Fury's fife. Neither am I, Steve replied. He's got the same blood on his hands that Loki does. But right now, we have to put that behind us and get this done. He began to talk about moving on with the plans to finish the job to stop Loki, but Tony turned his head to look at the blood stain on the wall. Loki needs a power source. If we can put together a list. He made it personal. Tony said, moving his head to look at Steve. That's not the point. That is the point. That's Loki's point. He hit us all right where we live. Why? Tony asked as he felt like everything was finally coming into a place. Loki was known as the god of mischief. Someone who plays with mind and not strength. Tony felt like his plan was finally coming in front of him. To tear us apart. Steve replied. Yeah, divide and conquer is great, but he knows he has to take us out to win, right? That's what he wants. He wants to beat us, he wants to be seen doing it. He wants an audience. Realization dawned upon Steve hearing that. Right. I caught his act in Stuttgart. Yeah, that was just a preview. This is opening night. And Loki, he's a full-tilt diva, right? Tony said, thinking of the first time they encountered Loki. He was giving a speech in between a crowd. That was the sort of thing he liked. He wants flowers, he wants parades. He wants a monument built to the skies with his name plastered. Tony stopped his words there as he finally understood where Loki was aiming for and where to find him. There was only one place in the whole world like that. Son of a bitch. Tony swore as he thought of his creation. Stark Tower. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. As Tony and Steve finally found out where Loki was aiming for, Fury was looking up at the cards that Coulson had left behind. There were a lot of thoughts running in his mind as he thought of Coulson. And one of the recruits in Avengers. Maria, who was beside him, couldn't help but speak. Sir. She called out. Agent Hill. Those cards were in Coulson's locker, not in his jacket. She said, basically asking why he had lied to the Avengers. Fury looked at her before replying. They needed the push. He said, thinking back to the conversation he had a while back. They need the push. It's the only way to do it. They won't fight against Loki until it's because of something personal. Please trust me. Shaking his head, he attempted to distract himself, and at that moment, he saw Tony flying out in the sky in his Iron Man armor with a Quinjet following behind him. It was the Avengers. We have an unauthorized departure from Bay 6. An agent called out on the PA. They found him. Fury quickly said, understanding where they were heading to. Get our communications back up, whatever you have to do. I want eyes on everything. Yes, sir. Maria replied with conviction in her eyes. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. We are not letting Loki get away this time. Steve said, and Alex just gave him a nod. They were on a Quinjet that was being piloted by Clint, who had finally gotten normal again, and Natasha was accompanying him in the cockpit. Steve and him were sitting in the back. So, who did you call? He asked, and Alex just smirked. Just some friends. In case things go wrong. We need as much help as we can if we are going to fight an army. Do you mean? Yeah, knowing what the Cube can do and Thor talking about Loki having an army. There can only be one thing. Steve looked down as he realized what Alex was hinting at. If something like that happened, New York would be ruined. We will stop him before that. Let's hope so. Alex muttered, smiling sheepishly. Comment. 2 comments. Vote. Chapter 101, Chapter 099 Army. Chapter 099. After finding out where Loki was, Tony easily found Erik Selvig on top of the highest point of the Stark Tower with a strange device that screamed bad news, connected to the Tesseract. He tried to make Erik stop the device, but it was futile. Even if he was a great scientist, he was still under Loki's mind control and he had no choice but to knock him out unconscious. The only way to close the device was to either stop the energy around it or destroy the device, but both the methods were impossible. The device was already self-sustaining, and when Tony tried to blast it off, his attack was bounced back due to a barrier covering it. The barrier is pure energy. It's unbreachable. That was what Jarvis told him, and having no choice, Tony decided to change tactics. Loki was looking at him in amusement from the top floor of the Stark Tower, and his new suit wasn't yet ready. That's why Tony decided to have a one-on-one talk with him. Removing his armor, he walked up to Loki. The god of mischief was more amused every passing second by his antics and said, "Please tell me you're going to appeal to my humanity." "Actually, I'm planning to threaten you," Tony said, walking over to the bar. "You should have left your armor on for that." "Yeah. It's seen a bit of mileage, and you've got the glow stick of destiny," he joked, then took out a glass of exquisite wine and asked, "Would you like a drink? Stalling me won't change anything." Loki chuckled, already having seen such tactics 1,000 times in his life. After all, he had already dealt with many dangerous people in the universe. No. Threatening. No drink. Are you sure? I'm having one," Tony said and poured himself a drink. Even though this was a part of his plan, he really did want a drink after such a day. Bad thing was that it was still not over. Maybe he would go to a nice restaurant after it is all finished. He thought to himself. The Shitori are coming. Nothing will change that. What do I have to fear? Loki took a glance outside at the sky where the Shitori would appear from, and then at Tony. "The Avengers," he replied, finally getting a hang of the name. "That's what we call ourselves. We're sort of like a team. Earth's mightiest heroes, type thing." "Yes, I've met them." "Yeah. It takes us a while to get any traction, I'll give you that one. But let's do a head count, here," Tony said, taking a sip from his glass and putting out his fingers. One by one, he began counting down the members of the Avengers. "Your brother." The demigod Loki winced at his brother's mention, and Tony secretly enjoyed his reaction. A super soldier, a living legend who kind of lives up to the legend. A man with breathtaking anger management issues, a couple of master assassins, then there's the scary kid with the wolf, and you, big fella, you've managed to piss off every single one of them. That was the plan. Loki laughed, not a trace of fear on his face. Not a great plan. When they come, and they will, they'll come for you. I have an army, Loki declared, and Tony walked up to him. "We have a Hulk." I thought the beast had wandered off. "You're missing the point. There is no throne. There is no version of this where you come out on top. Maybe your army comes and maybe it's too much for us, but it's all on you," he said, and for once, Loki felt some kind of fear, but he didn't show it on his face. "Because if we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn well sure we'll avenge it." Although Loki could see the conviction behind his words, it was not like he was without any plans. He was the type to have a backup plan for every backup plan. He smiled at Tony and suddenly touched his heart with the tip of his scepter. "How will your friends have time for me when they are so busy fighting you?" he said, expecting Tony's eyes to become soulless, but strangely, nothing happened. He motioned the scepter once again, but the arc reactor in Tony's chest was easily able to block off the scepter. This usually works, Loki muttered, and Tony tried to make a joke. Well, performance issues, it's not uncommon. 1 out of 5. Suddenly, Loki grabbed his throat in anger as Tony grunted. He threw him down on the floor. Jarvis, any time now, he muttered, urging Jarvis to prepare for the Mark 7 suit deployment. He tried to stand up, but Loki again grabbed him. You will all fall before me, he muttered in wild rage and threw him, this time with more force behind it. Tony crashed into the glass wall and started falling down. He frantically shouted as the wind brushed past his face. Deploy! Deploy! At that moment, a rocket container came out from behind Loki and hit him while flying towards Tony. Just in time, it reached him and spreaded itself around his body, seconds before Tony touched the ground. With his repulsor, he was able to fly back to the top of the tower where Loki was standing. Looking at him, he said, "And there's one other person you pissed off. His name was Phil." With that, he blasted Loki on the wall, but at that moment, the device on top of Stark Tower suddenly started spinning. Using the cube's energy, it shot out a beam into the sky which created a portal. From it, aliens suddenly started coming in. On the ground, some people saw it and started screaming. The sight of weird aliens coming in through a portal was horrifying. Right, Army, Tony said, looking up at the portal. Comment. 3 comments. Vote. Chapter 102, Chapter 100 Horror Movies Vibes. Chapter 100. This gives horror movie vibes rather than something like Star Wars, Alex thought in his head as he looked up at the view of the portal opening up in the sky on the screen, and the Shi'Tori army pouring out. Tony tried to launch missiles at them, but he was only able to kill some of them. They were endlessly pouring out from the portal. I didn't think I would see something like this ever, Steve muttered next to him. What Alex had told him had come true, and they needed to find a way to stop it no matter what. Tony can't handle those flying bastards alone. Let me go help him, Alex said and stood up. Walking towards the back of the Quinjet, he opened up the hatch. What are you doing? Can you fly? Steve asked, stepping up after him. Kind of, Alex said and jumped off the jet in midair. Steve looked down, scared for a moment, but suddenly, a skateboard appeared under his legs out of nowhere. It started floating and Alex shouted at Steve. See, I'm fine, Alex said and looked down on his jetboard. This item was from a sci-fi world and had cost him almost 1000 HP. But it was all worth it. After all, flying was something he didn't want to miss out on. Now that he was out of the Quinjet, he directed his jetboard to fly towards the portal and easily passed the Quinjet. They are more ugly in real life, he thought inwardly as he looked at some Shi'Tori chariots flying towards him. The riders on top of it noticed him and fired blasts at him, but he easily dodged them. Taking out his sword, he sent down a lightning strike at them, destroying them easily. As the chariots fell to the ground, Tony's voice came out of his earpiece. Currently, Tony was using missiles and repulsor rays to knock out the Shi'Tori coming out from the portal, but their numbers were just increasing by the minute. Kid, where did you get that from? Just got it. Need some help? Yes, these are endless. Try to scare them off with your wolf. Sure. Alex said and joined Tony in fending off the Shitori riders. On the ground, people screamed and tried to run away. Complete chaos had befallen upon them out of nowhere. Watching such a scene, there was only one person who was smiling, Loki. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Loki was looking at his glorious army as they poured in from the portal that he had crested. He had worked hard to give them the platform and now, they just have to do their work and make him the rightful ruler of Earth. In a way that he deemed fit. As he was looking at them, Thor landed right next to him on top of the Stark Tower. He had managed to escape the cell somehow and survive. But his anger knew no bounds. His own brother had caused something so drastic on a planet he had sworn to protect. Loki. Turn off the Tesseract, or I'll destroy it. He yelled at Loki, who turned to look at him. Shaking his head, he replied. You can't. There is no stopping it. He smiled. There is only the war. So be it. Thor said, and Loki jumped at him, yelling. He tried to slash at him using the scepter, but Thor dodged the attack and hit back. They have dueled with each other for decades, so they knew the moves. They were the same exact ones. Just the tactics were always different. Thor tried to strike with his hammer and Loki blocked it with the scepter. Due to the power behind both the mystical weapons, a force field was created around them and destroyed part of the Stark Tower. The debris fell on the ground as Thor glanced at it. Loki, father will kill you for this. He yelled, lightning crackling around his hammer. Only if I return. He blocked the attack by creating a force field with the help of the scepter. It was at that time that the Quinjet containing Clint, Natasha and Steve saw Loki and Thor fighting on top of the Stark Tower. Clint quickly turned it around and deployed the railgun. Without wasting any time, he fired at Loki. He dodged them by rolling around and sent out one of his most powerful force bolts. The attack hit the Quinjet and smoke started rising from it. The engine was destroyed and Clint was hardly able to control the Quinjet to land safely. Hold tight. We are falling. He shouted as a loud sound came out from the engine. Steve and Natasha held on to anything they could find and suddenly, Alex's voice came out from the speakers. Don't worry, I'm coming. He was currently fighting more Shitori chariots by using Wyvern Rush and Lightning Strike, but when he saw the Quinjet falling, he quickly rushed towards it. Fortunately, the technology of his jet board was way more advanced than the Quinjet and he was easily able to get in front of it. He manifested his wolf in his hands and held the Quinjet, trying to stop it from crashing on the ground. Thankfully, it worked due to his increased strength and he slowly landed it in front of a building which had people rushing out of it. Are you okay? Alex asked as the hatch opened and Steve jumped out of it, followed by Clint and Natasha. I'm fine. It's just hard to believe what is happening. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Alex replied and frowned. The scale of the Shitori invasion was too big and this time, he wasn't sure if the Avengers would be able to stop it. He was sure that the invasion was even bigger than the movie. As he was thinking that, a loud, indescribable sound came out from the portal. Everyone looked towards it and saw a scene that made them spooked. A giant worm-like alien was coming out from it. Seeing it, Alex couldn't help but curse in his mind. Fuck. The Leviathan. Comment. 2 comments. Vote. Chapter 103, Chapter 101 Skeleton Army. Chapter 101. Seeing the Leviathan coming out of the portal, no one was able to say anything for a while. It was the biggest creature that Alex had ever seen, and in the last few weeks, he had the honor to even fight a wyvern. The Leviathan floated in the sky and Shitori soldiers were hanging on it. Sensing the right moment, they jumped off from the Leviathan to the buildings as people's dreadful screams filled the whole city. Stopping that will be hard, he thought, and looked around. There were dead bodies lying around him. Some people were killed by the Shitori, some by the falling debris, and some were just unlucky. But he was sure that if he didn't do much, more people would be the same, and even if they managed to defeat the Shitori, it would be a Pyrrhic victory at most. "Stark, are you seeing this?" Steve asked in his earpiece. "Seeing. Still working on believing. Where's Banner? Has he shown up yet?" Tony asked, and Steve shook his head. "Don't know. Probably on his way. Just keep me posted. I will try to do something about that thing, whatever it is." After saying that, Steve looked at the rest of the Avengers. In the sky, Shitori chariots were everywhere, and every minute, more and more people were dying. "What are we gonna do about this?" Clint asked, glancing at Natasha and Steve. "We have civilians trapped in there," Steve said, and at that moment, some chariots flew just above their heads. On top of one of them was the person who had started all of this. "Loki." Suddenly, Alex suddenly spoke up. "I can do some things." "What?" The three of them looked at him as he suddenly took out a book out of nowhere. The book was black and was tattered. On top of it, there were strange symbols drawn on it, and it gave out an eerie feeling. "Book of Dark Summoning." Alex smiled, thinking about the item he had gotten from the Tower of Iraskis as a reward. He opened it and started reading out some words written in it. The words were incomprehensible, but Alex was able to speak it out loud. As he read out every word, the book started shining in red and floated in front of him. "What are you doing? Some kind of voodoo?" Clint asked, and just then, summoning symbols appeared out of nowhere in front of them. From those symbols, beams of green light shot out, and those lights suddenly took shape and became skeletons. Those skeletons let out a scream and held swords, spears, and even guns in their hands. Leading them was a big skeleton warrior wearing armor with a sword and shield in its hands. "Are those friendly?" Natasha asked, not able to believe her eyes. She was almost ready to shoot those undead if they tried to move towards them. "Yeah, they are called the Skeleton Army, and I have full control over them. They should be able to protect the civilians from the Shitori for a while," Alex explained while chuckling, enjoying their reactions. "I won't turn into one of them if they bite me, right?" Clint asked. "They are not undead." "Don't worry, they are." As he was speaking, some Shitori soldiers suddenly approached them. Steve was ready to throw his shield, but before he could do anything, his skeleton army rushed towards the Shitori. One of the gunmen fired a force bolt against them while the others jumped on top of them, using their swords to slash at the Shitori. The Shitori tried to fight back, but their attacks were blocked by the skeleton warrior, who used its shield to block the ranged attacks and then took the soldier's head by a slash of his sword. Seeing this, Natasha muttered, "Now they look a bit cuter. They would be a huge help to you. I have told them to listen to you too and help out," Alex said, and Clint looked at him with a confused expression. "When did you tell them?" "Oh, they are mind-controlled." After saying that, he looked at Steve and said, "We need to move and help out the others." Steve nodded and stepped on his jetboard, and he took off. Everywhere, there was chaos and it was hard to move around. "Do you have something like those skeleton army?" We would need all the firepower required for the Shitori. Steve asked while using his shield to push a Shitori soldier off his flying chariot. Unsurprisingly, the shield landed right in his hands after that. Don't worry, I did say I was calling some friends. They will handle some areas around New York. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In Hell's Kitchen, New York. The scene was of complete chaos. Suddenly, the sky had teared open and from it, aliens had come through, destroying everything in its path. Help me. Help. Fuck. The end of the world is here. Get out. I need to reach my family. In the middle of it was Matt, who had already been informed of this by Alex. Now hearing the cry for help, he couldn't help but frown. Matt, listen to me, I'm in the middle of a big mess and soon, the whole of New York would be too. I'm working with some people and we are trying to go after a god who wants to unleash an alien army on New York. I know it sounds crazy but it's all real. I don't know if I would be able to stop him, but if the alien army does come, be ready and help out the people in Hell's Kitchen. He thought of the call he had with his friend as he rushed towards the sound of screaming. Crazy things were happening and he needed to save his neighborhood. He stopped when he sensed a man running through the streets. He was crying and besides him were things that he had never sensed before. They were not humans and felt like machines, but they were living too at the same time. Crazy times really. He jumped in front of them while frowning. Comment. 2 comments. Vote. Chapter 104, Chapter 102 The End. Chapter 102. Wow. Wow. Why are there aliens dropping out of the sky? Alex, what is happening? Peter's excited voice came out of the earpiece as Alex stabbed his sword in one of the Shitori soldiers' hearts. After that, he rolled down to dodge an energy blast and replied with a frown on his face. I can't explain now, Peter. Just fight them off when you see it and take people to safe spots. I will tell you everything after all this is over. What about you? Don't worry, I need to fight the big guys. He cut the connection after that and focused on the sight before him. He was surrounded by 20 Shitori soldiers who looked like they couldn't wait to kill and eat him. Though, Alex wasn't even sure if Shitori liked human flesh. I'm sorry but I can't play with you all for too long, he said, and as the Shitori sensed him doing something, they raised their weapons and fired blasts at them. But those attacks never reached him as he called out his wolf. After touching his wolf's body, the attacks deflected and the giant creature dived at the pitiful aliens. Alex didn't just stand there. He sent out lightning attacks and Wyvern rushed towards a few Shitori and soon, every one of the Shitori soldiers were defeated. Alex group up. Steve's voice came out of his earpiece as he finished the Shitori soldiers. He quickly called back his wolf and got on his board. It took just a few seconds of flying and he was able to see Steve, Natasha and Clint gathered around. Even Thor was standing there. Looks like everyone is here now, he remarked while getting off the board, and Clint replied. Stark is still playing around with that big thing. They are called Leviathan, Thor answered, attracting eyeballs. Although calling them big things is appropriate too. So, how are we going to do this? Natasha asked, looking up at the alien army in the skies. As a team, Steve replied, giving off the aura Alex would only expect of a main character. I have unfinished business with Loki, Thor said, and Clint clicked his tongue. Get in line. As the Avengers were talking, the sound of a bike came out and Alex turned his head to find Bruce riding one. It was the same motorcycle as the original movie. Where did you get that bike from? Alex asked as he came close. I was coming in a jet but those bastards destroyed it. I barely escaped and then found this bike. Anyway, what's going on? Bruce asked, looking around them. His eyes stayed on the skeleton soldiers standing on guard to protect against any surprise attacks, but before he could ask, Steve spoke. War, I guess. It's quite different from my times though. Have a way out? Bruce asked. Loki's going to keep this fight to us and that's what we need. Without him, these things can run wild. Stark's up there, we need him too. As he was speaking, a wild shout came out. Everyone raised their head to look at the sky where one of the Leviathans was coming their way, destroying buildings in its path. If one focuses, he could see Tony in front of the giant alien. You got Banner? Then, tell him I'm taking the party to you. Tony's voice came out of the earpiece as Natasha looked at the Leviathan in shock and muttered. I don't see how that's a party. Dr. Banner, I think this might be a very good time to get angry. Steve said, and Bruce remarked with a grin. That's my secret. I'm always angry. After he said that, Alex witnessed one of the coolest moments in MCU history. Bruce slowly walked towards the approaching Leviathan and turned into Hulk before smashing it in pieces. Seeing such a scene, he couldn't help but think. I will make sure to not piss off Hulk. As the Leviathan got destroyed in pieces, Steve gave everyone orders to what to do, focusing on the containment of the Shi'Tori soldiers. He told Alex to help in taking care of the Leviathans, which he happily nodded to. After all, he hasn't used any of his trump cards yet. Activating bullet time and berserk, he transformed into a beast. His blood boiled and a red aura surrounded him. He used his wolf to protect him from the incoming Shi'Tori attacks and smashed into them. Although it wasn't easy, he was able to destroy 3 of them before his berserk ended and he lost consciousness. When he woke up, the events of Avengers had already ended. The Council had launched a missile on New York and Tony had done the same thing he had done in Avengers. Due to Alex's interference, the damage to New York City had been to the minimum. One more thing to note was that Alex's identity was out in the open as his face had been captured in the camera when he was becoming unconscious. But when Alex woke up, the only thing in his mind was the notification in front of him. Hi, I'm the one who sent you to this world. You have exceeded my expectations. Let's meet. The heck?